I now call to order the October 10th, 2019 regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission to order. Roll call. Ms. Thatcher, would you please call roll?
Commissioner Beeson.
Here.
Commissioner Epperson. Here. Commissioner White.
Here.
Commissioner Rockland. Commissioner Hall. Commissioner Quijano.
Here.
Rockland and Hall are expected.
I hear them. Do the roll call again.
Commissioner Rockland. Here. Commissioner Hall.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission. I'd like to take a moment to explain the order of the meeting, specifically as it relates to the hearing of the application on tonight's agenda. Each agenda will be called, and we'll first hear the staff presentation and recommendations. Following this, the commissioners who serve on the review committee will present their observations and recommendations. At this point, the applicant will have an opportunity to step forward and provide any comments or additional information about the application, and commissioners may ask questions. Once the applicant has finished, members of the public who wish to provide comments on the current case may do so, while please noting the time limit of 3 minutes per person. Everyone who steps forward will need to state their name aloud for the record and sign in at the sheet located at the podium, and limit their comments to the application at hand. Following any public comment, the hearing will be closed, and the commission will deliberate the application, make a motion, have a discussion, and then vote. If any members of the public would like to speak to the general preservation topics and not to any specific application, opportunity is provided during the public commentary following the approval of the agenda. Everyone who would like to address the commission may do so and will be asked to state their name aloud for the record and sign at the front podium. Thank you very much for coming this evening. Your comments are valuable to the commission. I would now like to introduce commissioners, even though we did roll. I'm Commissioner Beeson. We have Commissioner Epperson down there, Commissioner Robert White here, Staff Jill Thatcher, Commissioner Quijano, Commissioner Rockland, and Commissioner Hall down on the end. All right, first thing is approval of the agenda. Let's look at our agenda. Are there any deletions, additions, or changes to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Hearing no objection, the agenda is approved as presented. And then we're on to the audience participation. Do any members of the public who would like to come forward and speak for the record on any preservation topic not on tonight's agenda? No. And we'll move on to unfinished business, which we don't have any. Then we're on to F, hearings. We'll start with hearing F1, 614 2nd Street. Ms. Thatcher.
Thank you. This two-story gable fronter is in the Old West Side Historic District. First appears in the 1892 city directory as number 54, the home of Taylor Herman Krug. The house has a cut stone foundation and 1/1 windows. It originally had a full-width front porch, which is now a small stoop. A small side porch on the north side retains some original decorative trim. A large rear automobile garage addition was present on the 1925 Sanborn, and a two-story addition appears on the 1931. The 1931 Sanborn matches the footprint and number of stories of what we see today. Property is located on the west side of 2nd Street between West Madison and West Mosley, and the applicant is seeking HDC approval to remove a portion of the one-story wing on the back of the house and replace it with a new, wider one-story wing with an expanded roof deck. This house took me a little while to get my head around, but I hope that I can help you make sense of it. So, two-story gable fronter, has aluminum siding right now. Part of the proposal is to take that off and expose the clapboard that's underneath. Here's the front stoop. This is proposed to be removed and replaced with a similarly sized stoop, not a full-width front porch, but picking up some of the elements of an existing small side porch, which we'll get to in a sec. That's that side porch over there. Walking around the house, we've got a non-original chimney, and then there's a bump out that shows up on both of the Sanborns, wraps around the house. And then behind that is a one-story wing, or one-story segment, that wraps all the way around this two-story addition on the back. The main house and the two-story bit have cut stone foundations, but all of this low-roofed one-story does not have cut stone foundations, and this is what appears as an automobile garage on the Sanborns. How that worked, I don't know, but it was presumably some sort of a shop, somebody who worked on cars or just had a couple of cars. And working our way around, there's still a little bit that's a shed in the back. And it really looks like this was built in segments, in sections, though it's kind of hard to tell. It's all sort of garage quality construction, though this part has been made into habitable space. And just this part in the back, that's the shed, is unheated, unconditioned. You can see that the two-story, I call it an addition on the back. I think it was an addition, but it's got a cut stone foundation, so it was either a really early addition or possibly even the original part of the house. Small deck off the back. This is all proposed to stay. And what they'd like to do is lop off, just behind this door, all of this back portion of the former automobile garage and replace it with 2 new bedrooms. They're just a single-story addition. This is walking away around the additions on the back. It's all kind of consistent in manner of construction and design. You can see here where the stone foundation stops and the garage, it's just concrete, begins. This is the side porch when you're walking around to the north side. It's pretty unassuming, but it does, on the inside, have really cool trim that on the outside was plywooded over or boarded over. It's got these little corner brackets that are kind of interesting. So the proposal is to pick up on some of these details. And look at, what is this? This is an interesting bracket, too. Not sure where. Is that, that's not an interesting bracket, that's a downspout. I can always hope. I can always hope. It's a little hidden sunburst. All right, so you can see that up here on the second floor, they peeled off some of the aluminum just to see what was underneath. So now they know how wide the exposure of the wood lap siding is in order to figure out what to put on the proposed addition. Here we are, as built. This is the current boundaries, this crosshatched of the rear addition. What they'd like to do is take it off and then rebuild it with an inset that's more consistent along the back here. And you can actually see on here where they've drawn the proposed, it goes across back. No, it's not. It goes up here, goes across where it goes across currently, but fills in that back corner and then matches up back here to the 2-story addition.
The dash
That
line
will
on the
be-
right drawing has the demo, so you can see.
Yeah, it's
Where they're-
underneath here, yeah. And you may want to look at this in your packets if this is just too fuzzy. But this essentially is the new addition, this rectangle on the back, after this rectangle on the back comes off. And this is the second floor plan. You can see that it's a 1-story addition with the deck. So this is an expanded version of the existing deck, just sits on top of the rebuilt 1-story wing in the back. All right, front of the house, you can see that they're proposing to rebuild the front stoop with more appropriate wood straight posts, not chamfered like the little fancy porch, but with some of the detailing present. Though the builder assures us that it won't match exactly. It's not a replica of that, so it won't be confused for historic work. And you really can't see any of the additions or anything on the front elevation. Now we're on the north side. Existing is on the top. The deck isn't really drawn in on here, but use your imagination. You can see it up here. And you can see how this is lopped off, this series of additions, and one consistent addition is proposed here. There's a chimney for presumably an interior stove. This is a panel that has some detail in your packet. I don't think it made it into the slideshow, but it shows a small inset. The second floor corner, obviously, is still very apparent. That's not being touched. The first floor, they've proposed, I believe it's about 18 inches wide panel that's recessed a couple of inches. The wall on the interior is flush, but this is a visual and physical break between the new and the old. So it is an inset. It's probably only a couple of inches. So you should take a look at the detail when you're considering that. You can see the new front porch here. The design on the back is pretty straightforward. It's got some triple double hung windows, French doors, larger deck on the back. And you can see how this new corner is inset from the existing. This is the existing one-story piece that would be lopped off on the back. And let's see, when we get around to the side, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. Right here. So they're cutting off the existing additions right here and then insetting the new wall to help differentiate the new work from the old work. So those automobile sheds are from the period of significance. They're obviously not used for cars at all anymore. It's used mostly as living space. But I don't feel like it retains its historic significance really because it doesn't have the quality of work that you would typically see on living space. It's just been converted over the years in pieces. And I'll get to that in a second when we talk about the Secretary of the Interior standards. So really, the most historic part of the house is everything with a stone foundation, and none of that is changed, essentially. There's some details in there on the proposed windows and French doors. All right, Secretary of Interior standards. Number 2 says that the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Number 9 says that new additions, exterior alterations, or related new constructions shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Number 10 says new additions and adjacent or related construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. From the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for additions, recommended is constructing a new addition so that there's the least possible loss of historic materials, so that character-defining features are not obscured, damaged, or destroyed. Also from additions, recommended is designing new additions in a manner that makes clear what is historic and what is new. Also locating the attached exterior addition at the rear or on an inconspicuous side of a historic building, and limiting its size and scale in relationship to the historic building. Also recommended is considering the attached exterior addition, both in terms of the new use and the appearance of other buildings in the historic district or neighborhood. Design for the new work may be contemporary or may reference design motifs from the historic building. From the guidelines for additions not recommended is attaching a new addition so that the character-defining features are obscured, damaged, or destroyed, and designing a new addition so that its size and scale in relation to the historic building are out of proportion, thus diminishing the historic character. From the guidelines for district or neighborhood setting, it's not recommended to introduce new construction into historic districts that is visually incompatible or that destroys historic relationships within the setting. For building site, recommended is retaining the historic relationship between buildings, landscape, and open space. There are no other outbuildings on this. Actually, I think there is one in the back, but it's pushed way back in the corner. There's a shed. And from the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, I'm just going to read it to you. It's appropriate to place new walls in a different plane from the historic structure in a subordinate position to the historic fabric, and to retain the relationship between buildings, landscape, features, and open space. All right. Let's see. So the new footprint proposed here, that's a good drawing, would be 13% of the original footprint. This doesn't really account for the part that they're demolishing and replacing. And the floor area of the additions, all additions, adds 29% to the original. So this meets the Ann Arbor Design Guideline that says the addition should exceed neither half of the original building's footprint nor half of the original building's total floor area. This corner that I talked about on the back, back here, that's 2 feet 7, which is appreciated since it makes a nice visible break, and it's on the driveway side of the house, so it gives them a little bit taper to get back behind the house. So this inset on this side, which is right here, which I showed you on the elevation drawing, this one, it is 4 inches deep and 14.5 inches wide. And it has fiber cement board instead of wood lap siding. Wood lap siding is proposed on the addition. Really, if you look at the existing and proposed materials, sometimes we discourage people from using the same kind of siding, but because the cut stone foundation makes it very easy to tell the new from the old, I'm not too concerned about people confusing this addition just because it has lap siding from the original part of the house. Also, the windows are nicely differentiated. They're compatible. They're double hungs, but they have slightly different proportions. They're either a little bit taller or a little bit shorter than existing ones around the house. The addition's trim is similar with slightly varied widths to distinguish it. And staff believes the replacement of the first floor rear addition is appropriate given its lack of character-defining features, its out-of-sight location, and the impracticality of using it again as a garage. Proposed addition is largely hidden behind the two-story portions of the house and does not compromise the integrity of the site or other buildings nearby. If this were not behind the house, if you could see this in any way, I would frown very much on removing it. Also, if it had not been converted to conditioned space at some point, this is never going to be used for its original use again, which was as an automobile garage or even for storage, except for this little bit. So I do feel that it is appropriate to remove this work that has a lesser standard of quality and replace it with new conditioned living space that will help with some of the goals of the homeowners. Sorry. That concludes staff report. Thank you.
All right, Commissioners Epperson and Rockland, we're on the review committee. Please give your report about your observations.
Anna, you want to go?
Sure. So we spent most of the time trying to just get an understanding of the sort of footprint of the addition and how much it's going to, what's going to be replaced versus what's remaining. I think Ms. Thatcher outlined pretty well what is, she used the statement replacement. I think a majority of this addition is actually, the footprint is pretty similar, right? So if you go to the picture just previously, yeah, that door right in the middle there, that's just beyond that is where the new addition will start. And it will take up approximately the same footprint all the way back, and then it gains a little bit more toward the back of the house. So it really kind of streamlines, I think. Yeah, so this, L shape now at the back kind of gets swallowed up within the house itself. We discussed the roof line, so they're going to match the roof pitch on this back portion of the house, but it'll be separated from the original house to the addition. And the height of the new addition, the height of the roof will be about the same, if not a little bit lower than the bump out on the driveway side of the roof. There's only, I think, that one window in the back that's being removed, and it's not original. What else? And they did make note that the freeze boards on the new addition would be slightly smaller than what's on the original house, so that there'll be some distinguishing sizes in the trim and new materials. David, did you want to?
Not much more to add. I think that the photos that we saw in the staff report are really helpful, especially for this project, because there's just so many kind of ins and outs of that garage. But I think that hopefully everyone gets it now after seeing all those photos. We basically did the same thing on site, just kind of going around. There is a previously approved by this commission addition on the property directly to the south. I think it was 2 months ago, maybe. Mm-hmm. And so in terms of what else is kind of on the block, there's going to be an addition, a rear yard addition, right next to this one, and they're similar scales. And then on the other side of the house, it's the back of the corner house, so it's not really relevant to the kind of the scale of the addition, because it's the back of a property. Anna mentioned it, but I just want to reiterate, the roof line of the addition is maybe drawn incorrectly slightly, and we can just get have the applicant explain it to us of what's going on, but it's drawn lower than the bump out. It's likely that it's even with the bump out because the ceiling heights are gonna be, equal. So,
This one?
yeah, if you look at the rear elevation, that's as good as any to see what's going on. And so I don't, okay, so that might be a challenge, but that rear addition, because they're leaving some of the historic garage, it doesn't touch that bump out. So I just want to say those two things. One, the roof might not be drawn exactly like they planned, but I don't think that it probably impacts the standards since it's not touching the existing one-story roof in the historic part of the home. I might have one more note. And, yeah, and the other thing that I'm sort of interested in hearing the discussion about is the north wall of the addition. It's just a real interesting way to achieve a separation and a delineation between the addition. It's very subtle, but I think it is, it's effective, but does it meet the standards, I guess, is the ultimate question, where it's a real obvious delineation. The standards say that, the additions shall be subordinate and not in the same plane. I'd be interested to know if people know about precedents for this sort of, type of delineation and stuff like that. Has this come up before? What does this mean in the future? That sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to the discussion.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant please come forward, provide your name for the record, and sign in? And if you have anything to add for the staff report or the review committee report, please do so.
I'm Jim Atchison from Atchison Builders. We're the designers and hopefully the builders of this project. I guess, let's find my page of notes here. I guess I'll address this little niche, on the side, this little indent first, since that's been brought up. The room inside of that is it's an extension to the family room. Family room, as it exists now, is kind of awkward and has a traffic pattern through it, so it's not all that useful until it gets extended, so that there's room for a seating arrangement beyond the traffic pattern. Because that room is fairly narrow, I mean, it's not a real big house, and, like houses of this era they were often narrow. The desire of the homeowners is to make that wall flush on the inside. Because if we were to take, say, 2 feet out, then that room would have really not be all that useful. So I was struggling with a way to make it obvious that it's a delineation, obvious that it's a change in materials, change in era. And I came up with that one. I think it's sufficient. I could possibly make it a little bit wider. I showed it as about 14.5 inches. Structurally, we probably could, gain a couple more inches if we want, I'd be reluctant to go much over, say, 20 or 22 without an engineer, Val, making sure that's valid structurally, but I was fairly conservative at 14.5, so I could make it slightly wider. We could relatively easily and sensibly, I think, paint that cement board a cement gray, to make just to make it more obvious that it's a separation. So I think, yeah, that's really the detail of that. The cross section of it is about 2/3 of the way back in your packet. It's on a page that looks like this. And there's a cross section that shows how it would be built. I wanted to just, I think Jill mentioned these same things on the front elevation. with our proposed replacement front porch. And really, the way this house is, probably just after World War II, this siding went on, aluminum siding went on, and totally, wiped out most of the historical character of the house. So we thought we would just kind of copy the historical details that are left on the side porch, but scale them up a little bit in proportion to the larger footprint of the bigger porch. And we're fortunate that, I'm sure that, that cutout pattern in the frieze board and the little corbels and the 4x4 posts with the chamfered corners, those are all original, so I'm quite sure. So that was a nice find, so that we don't know exactly what this porch looked like when it was first built, and there seems to be no record of that, but this would be a good approximation, so. There's a page, about 3/4 of the way or so towards the back, where I have a chart like this that goes through the different architectural elements that we found underneath the aluminum siding, like the skirt board and the water table, corner boards, gives the dimensions of all those. And it shows how on the addition, we're following some of that theme, but downsizing it a little bit. And then some parts of the theme we're dropping entirely, like the skirt board and the water table. So I think the totality between everything downsized a little bit and some elements missing entirely will make it pretty obvious from the street that this is not, this is something new or something different, not part of the old house. But yet it's in the character. It sort of generally follows the theme of I think that's the important thing. The new windows would be aluminum clad, and the new back door would be aluminum clad wood. But we frame them out in such a way that makes it look less glaringly modern, So it fits in with the historical character a little better, but yet not being a copy. It's clear that it's slightly different. So I think those are the things. There's some other subtleties, but I'm not sure we need to go into those. Do you have any questions for me?
I'm sure there are many questions. Anyone want to start? I can start. So the foundation wall, is it a block or a poured concrete?
It'll be a block. The part above grade will be blocked.
And is it crawl space in the back?
Crawl space.
Okay,
Yeah, a heated
And then-
heated crawl space.
heated crawl space. All right, and then this detail up here,
Yes.
where is that on the drawings?
That would be on all three sides of the new roof. So in other words, like the existing side porch and the existing bump out over the kitchen on the driveway side, the old original parts, that is, they're hip roofs. So we wanted to have a hip roof like that on the three sides of the addition, but it's only for I can't remember the number, like roughly 3 feet or so, 3.5 feet. And then it just goes into a flat roof, essentially, really subtle slope to it, but a flat roof, which will have a walkable roof coating. So we don't have to build up like a wood deck on top of the roof. The roof membrane itself is walkable as a deck. And that helps us have a low profile to that. But the shingles around the perimeter, I think, just give it a way better character in terms of somewhat following the theme of the house than like if we had a flat roof with a square edge detail.
Okay, any other questions?
Do you want to address the roof height? that you
Yeah, I
brought up?
think you're right. I
Okay.
think you're right. The roof height probably will be very close to equal. My draftsman really got in trouble with his computer and was really struggling with the last details, especially, but and to get it submitted in time. But, yeah, since the ceilings will be the same height as in the main house, the eave height on the addition and the eave height on the original kitchen bump out should be virtually the same, very close to the very same.
Another question for you, Jim.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this on site, but I was looking through the drawings, and it looks like there's some steps down from the French doors in the back. Is it, or, I couldn't really tell. In the drawings, there's like something there, but what's outside of those doors
The draftsman put in a little landing, so to speak, just a concrete landing. We haven't really addressed what we're gonna do out there.
Okay,
The grade goes up as you go to the back, so it won't be much of a step down
okay,
from the finished floor to the grade.
okay.
I don't know exactly what that number is, but it might be 2 risers, but it might be just 1.
Okay. And then are you stepping down onto grass, or is there a patio, or do you know
Well,
what you're doing back there?
We haven't gotten into we haven't made any design of something like that.
Yeah.
So that's to be determined.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't had conversation, the homeowners and I haven't had conversation yet about that. I'm sure they'll have something to step down onto. It won't be just grass, just otherwise, because it'd be muddy.
Right,
Especially with kids, in and out, it'll be muddy in a hurry. But we're not contemplating a big patio
right.
or, a deck or anything like that, at least at this stage.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You may be seated, thank you. Moving on to the public hearing, are there members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? Okay. I'll now close the public hearing portion of the application. Would any commissioners like to make a motion on this application? Moved by Commissioner Kiana.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 614 Second Street to remove a portion of the one-story wing on the back of the house and replace it with a new, wider, one-story wing with an expanded roof deck as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the house and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for all additions, residential additions, and new construction, and the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for new additions, district, or neighborhood setting, building site, and windows.
Support.
Second by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Maybe we'll first address the niche notch to kind of differentiate new and old. Yeah, so to answer your question, I haven't seen something like that before. I guess aside from a major thermal bridge, I guess it serves its architectural purpose in the sense that it's breaking old, new and old, but, we have to look at the guidelines to see whether or not it differentiates enough. We've seen additions being put on that, have the narrow kind of neck before they add the addition, and this is trying to kind of, in a way, almost emulate that in a way. So, yeah, I guess for the most part, aside from the thermal bridging, I don't really have a problem with it as a historic feature or non-historic feature, trying to differentiate.
I guess a question for those of you that were
Get your mic.
Question for the commissioners that were on site, looking at that elevation of the house from the street, was that highly visible?
No,
And where that
No,
portion would be?
it was
No,
not highly
not.
visible at all from the street. It's way back on the lot,
Okay.
because it's even behind the addition, right? It's
Or
behind
that
the historic
bump out,
addition, right? Yeah, so it's way back there. And it's on the narrow side of the lot,
Okay.
so it's not, no. Is it,
that's accurate. And the street, the site slopes up from the street, so you're actually a little bit lower from the
Oh,
sidewalk, so
okay.
it narrows it even a little bit more.
All right, thank you.
I mean, on that topic, I guess I do appreciate that point of is it visible from the street, and maybe I'd be thinking about it differently if it was on the other side. On the other side, on this project, it's a, yeah, in this
Right
view,
now.
it's a bump in, a significant bump in of like a couple feet. To me, like the applicant was talking about, like widening it or something, or painting it a different color, like, I don't think those two issues really would help it either way. I think that it's really the depth that's the main issue that the standards talk to, about not having the wall in the same plane. And it's not in the same plane for that little amount, and then it comes back. So I think that I'm agreeing with what I'm hearing so far
I support
on
the
that,
project.
on that topic. Yes.
I agree, I feel like we often have discussions of additions that the concern is often the depth of that. You know,
Yeah. far
the
end.
addition being subordinate or
Yeah.
somewhat to the.
I mean, it's
the main
still,
house.
it's still a big, long addition. I mean, we have another case
Right.
where the master bedroom is huge, you know, but by and large, it still is gonna,
It's a mess.
it doesn't oversize the rest of the addition, especially with the fact that we have a second story, two-story building nearby.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any other discussion?
Can I ask a quick question of the applicant again?
Yeah.
Sorry to, yeah, just real quick, the brick on the chimney, I apologize if I'm missing it, but is that defined anywhere on the new chimney?
No, I think there's a note there.
Yeah.
I'm basically planning to use a genuine clay brick, a thin brick, you know, thin set onto plywood, because it's not in line with the foundation exactly. I don't want to build masonry all the way up for thermal reasons and other, but there's several of those available, so I was planning to just get something that's roughly compatible with the older chimney, which it really isn't an original chimney anyways.
I assume the original is below, like, there's two bricks kind of I wasn't there, so on the picture, it looks very different, kind of halfway up, is that?
Oh, yes,
Correct.
it's been rebuilt in the
Right,
past,
so-
yeah. Yes, yeah, about halfway up, it's changed, yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
would ask the review committee, I'm assuming you're not going to be able to see this chimney very well. Or
I think that's right. No, it'll be hard to see it from the street until you're in the backyard.
Thanks.
Okay,
I do have
Okay.
another question while you're up, though.
yes,
So on this section through,
right.
little part, it doesn't well, this doesn't affect the application, but there's no insulation shown in there. I'm guessing you're gonna have
Oh,
to insulate that.
it's actually gonna
It's
be
rigid
solid
board.
styrofoam, rigid styrofoam.
It's 2-inch rigid.
No, in the slope of the roof?
Oh, and the slope
Are
of
you
the
talking
roof.
about the
No, you're right,
notch?
I did not draw it in, but,
The notch has other thermal bridging problems, mostly because of the wood, and it doesn't meet, well, again, this is all building code that they'll have to take care of, because it doesn't meet energy code. Right. But up in that space.
yeah, you're right, there will be
yeah.
insulation there. In fact, we're gonna have to use sprayed foam
Yeah.
insulation to meet the code,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
yeah.
I just saw a potential ice damming.
Yeah, big time, right. Yeah.
All right, but by and large, you know, I look at the, you can, any other questions while he's up? All right, you know, by and large, I look at the guideline issues, and, you know, we're looking at new additions, and building sites, and guidelines for new additions in the city guideline, design guidelines, and it seems like all of this matches just fine, in my opinion.
Okay.
All right, any discussion? All right, let's move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. All right, you're welcome. Moving on to the next one, hearing F2, 415 West William Street. Ms. Thatcher.
His home is in the Old West Side Historic District, and it first appears in the 1917 city directory as the home of Frank E. Case and music teacher John J. Kurtz. Kurtz has lived in the house until 1945 or 46. It's 2 stories with a steeply pitched pyramidal roof and 3 dormers facing the front and sides. Features a full-width concrete front porch with half columns and a single-car shed-roof garage. Sites on the south side of West William between 2nd and 3rd Streets. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to install a generator in front of the east side addition of the house. All right, you can see from this that the house is up a little bit from the sidewalk and the street. This is the west side of the house where the driveway is, leading to a contributing garage. There's really no side yard here at all. This house is pretty close to this garage. Moving around the side of the house, this is what I'm calling the side wing or the side addition. I don't know the exact date of that, but the generator is proposed to go in front of it, a couple feet in from the corner, kind of behind this bush stuff here. Here's a better shot. Right behind Sarah, who is the property owner, would be where it's proposed to go.
Well, right behind.
Behind, no, I said behind. Yeah, not right behind, okay, closer to the wing. 15 feet behind. Notice that behind the wing is another building that was a 1.5 or 2-story shed, small barn, large shed. This is also a historic feature on the site, and it creates a very tight space between the house and the shed. There's a small backyard behind the house there, but it is not very substantial. And this is the east side of the house over here, next to the shed, the 2-story, I'm calling it a shed. It's not used as a shed now, but there's a water feature here, and this side has the most exposure to neighbors' yards. This house next door is a corner lot, and then this house is a kitty corner lot. The proposal is to add this generator, which is 48 inches wide and 28 inches tall. It sits on a pad that's concrete with styrofoam or something insulation inside to help muffle the sound. And the owner's proposing to put up a piece of screening fence, not like fence the whole thing in, but put a panel that's more between 4 and 5 feet high in front of, I'm sorry, it would be between, how tall is this? This is 28 inches. So between 30 inches and 5 feet high in front of the generator, directly in front, with a couple feet of spacing that's required by code, so that it wouldn't be visible from the street. So not to box it in entirely, but to screen it from view. Here's the location. That is an 18-foot wing that you see on the side of the house, 2-by-4-foot pad, and they need 5 feet from this side wall of the house because there's some gas meters and things here. And I believe it's a 3-foot setback back here, but the contractor can correct me if I'm wrong, from the wall of the house. And then the fence would go at least 3 feet out here in the front. There is a bed and breakfast run out of the house, and that's the reason that the owner would like a generator. During Art Fair last year, you may recall that there was 4 days with no power, which is not very good for your guest or yourself staying in the house. And this does require HDC approval because it's visible from the street. If it were located somewhere else on the lot, that might not be necessary. In fact, they had a staff approval to put it behind the house, but then contractors came out and said, nope, that's not going to work after all for a variety of reasons. And this is what they came up with that's not right next to the neighbors and doesn't interfere with things that are going on in that side yard, but they hope to also put it in the front, screen it from view. Secretary of Interior standards, I already read to you 2, 9, and 10. The guidelines for mechanical systems recommend installing a new mechanical system if required for the new use, so that it causes the least alteration possible to the building's floor plan, the exterior elevations, and the least damage to the historic building material. It's also appropriate to install, from the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, to install new air conditioning units and related mechanical equipment in such a manner that historic materials and features are not damaged or obscured, and to use screening such as vegetation and fencing around mechanical equipment. Despite the visible location in front of the building, staff recommends approval of the generator. The applicant describes other options, why they didn't work, and has discussed these with staff. There's also an attachment in the packet that talks about that. The work is completely reversible, appropriately screened, and does not damage or obscure historic materials. You should note that we received two individuals' public comments on this. One is from the homeowner that's kitty corner in the back, and the other one is from Christine Brummer of the Old West Side Association. One of those was emailed out to you earlier in the week when we received it, but these other two are new, so they were handouts tonight. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners Epperson and Rockland, we're on the review committee. Please give us your report of your observations.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess that this is sort of in the worst spot except for all the others, because we looked all around the house for a better option, and there's a lot of constraints. Mostly, well, there's mechanical code and there's zoning. And so the mechanical code constraints seem to be 3 foot from combustible and 5 feet from any penetration. And then there was zoning that was 5 feet from a lot line. And Kramer will correct me if I'm wrong there, but it was something like that. And so we just took the tape measure and went around everywhere, and the way that this house is laid out, it's very close to the back lot line. And so it just didn't make sense anywhere along the back. You saw the driveway on the right, where there's no good spot for it. So really on this west side, there was this option that we're looking at here, and then further back, there's kind of another, like right there. And if you put it back there, that's closer to the neighbors. And the issue is clearly noise, that we're trying to balance noise to the neighbor's property from any visual issue from the sidewalk. And it's really the balance here. The other issues for the installer are that there's an electrical connection that obviously needs to be made because this is a generator, and there's a gas connection. And it just so happens the gas meter is right in that corner right there. And then since the basement is accessible there, it's much easier to get electrical to the system. If we put it in that sort of like location B area, they're going to have to trench through the yard to get electrical and gas over there. And it just doesn't seem like a better location anyway, just from us walking around there. I haven't read this other letter, so if I could have a couple moments to read that, I'd appreciate it after the, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, so David covered most everything. We did take a look from the street, roughly where this photo is taken from, just kind of discuss the height. Again, the generator itself was 28 inches, I believe, and then about 3 or 4 inches for the pad, so roughly 36. So we were looking at what the height of that would be, how it would be visible from the street, and then, of course, the fencing or the screen installed in front of that, what a good height might be. Looking at the window that's on the elevation, figured that the screening would end up below that, so you would still, that window would still be visible. Good thing the other wall is completely solid. There's no openings or penetrations or anything to kind of conceal with that. And then, again, the yard is up above the sidewalk a little bit as well. So I think that helps kind of push it back a little bit, so it's not, immediately in the front. There is other vegetation and fencing, which, yes, can be removed at some point, but there is a screening material planned for it, so that I think would conceal pretty well. And if you're approaching from the other side, the porch completely blocks the view of the generator. So, yeah.
All right, would the applicant please come forward, provide your name for the record, and sign in? And then if you have anything to add to the staff report or the review committee report, please do so.
Hello, I am Kramer Gormley. I'm with the heating and cooling contractor installing the generator. I've never really done this before. Am I supposed to just
Do you have anything to add to the report or presentations by the,
You guys pretty much covered most of it. It sounds like the majority of the concern with most is the noise, the volume. In regards to that, the generator comes on once a week is how we normally set it. I think you can adjust that to as far out as once every other week. And it runs for 10 to 15 minutes at a very low capacity, its lowest capacity, and shuts off. That time can be set at any time of the day. And then other than that, it's only running when the power goes out, which the automatic standby generators are dramatically quieter than any type of portable generator that anyone would pull out and start up and run any type of portable generator. The homeowner has intentions on making a nice fence or bushes or obstructing the view of the generator from the sidewalk or the road, however you guys see fit. The precast concrete pad's 3 inches thick and the generator itself's 29 inches tall, so you're looking at right about 3 feet tall off the ground. And it would be sitting right about where the bush is behind Sarah in the picture, and I don't believe it's any taller than the bush.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
You mentioned this on site. What was the decibel level of the?
They operate low 60s to high 60s, so depending on what it's trying to power.
Any other questions?
I assume it's going through the wall where the meters are, but it wasn't, unless I missed it, the 1.5 inch diameter hole that's needed to penetrate for the connections, that's located where?
So the electrical service is on the other side of the wing or the bump out. So that a line would come from the electrical service that's on that side across the basement and then come out right behind the generator.
Oh, so
So on this one.
that wall,
Correct,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
And then the gas would just connect right where the gas is after the meter?
So we would tee in by the meter and run the gas line just between the foundation of the home, around the corner, and then to the generator on the exterior. And that can be painted.
And then does the application identify the screening or the size of the screening? So that
There's a photo of a
photo of what it
fence.
might look like,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So we know that it'll be shorter than that, but do we know that its length, its meet and bounds?
No.
All right.
It's going to be 3 foot proud of the generator because it's
Yeah.
combustible. So
But is it the
that's the location, but the height and width is not in the application. We're being told on, Jill, I think, did you say 5 feet or is it 4 feet maximum height?
That far back, I believe it's 5 feet.
Okay.
It's not really a fence, it's more like a trellis at this
Okay,
point, it's
yeah.
a screen. But if you guys wanted, you could always add something about how it shouldn't exceed the height of the windowsill, for example,
Yeah.
or, but that's up to you.
And I guess the length and width as well, like, I'm just looking at the design guidelines, it just says to use screening such as vegetation and fencing around mechanical equipment. So, you know, the scope of around, is it just one side, is it one side and a little bit the other side, is it, you know, stuff like that. Should it go all the way to the end of the house, and do we want it touching the house? You know, these are all things that aren't clear on this application. You know, I think for us, we want it away from the house. We want it not to have it touch the historic materials, keep it separated from the historic materials. And certainly, you know, it not having above the window, that's not, we don't want that to obscure the windows, the historic features. So these are all kind of things we can bring into our discussion once the motion is made. But any other questions for the applicant? Do you want to come up and say something? All right, come on up, you just have to state your name aloud for the record and sign in as well.
Sarah Okuyama. And my ideas about the trellis, there's the deck right there. And I'm hoping the trellis would not go above the floor of that deck. And I think it would be best if it had sort of an enclosure, because my guests will be looking out that window, and I don't want them to see the side of the generator, nor the other side. But I think it would be freestanding and not touching the deck. That's all.
Okay. Don't forget to sign it. You see, is there a pen up there?
yes.
All right, good. All right, any other questions for the applicants? No? All right. You can be seated as soon as you're done. We'll move on to the public hearing. Are there members of the public who'd like to speak on this agenda item? This is where some of the letters that came in from the public, we have those. I don't know if we need to.
No, we don't have to read them or anything for the public hearing, no.
All right, I don't see members of the public. So I will now close the public hearing portion of the application. And then would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Hall?
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 415 West William Street, a contributing structure in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a generator and screening in front of the east side of the addition of the house as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for Mechanical Equipment and the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and Guidelines for Rehabilitating Historic Buildings, in particular, Standards 2, 9, and 10, and the Guidelines for Mechanical Systems.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Is there discussion on the motion? Discussion on the motion.
I guess
Commissioner Rocco.
I'm curious about the noise issues and wondering if do they come into any discussion on this commission? I mean, it's obviously interesting as a neighbor or something,
Correct.
and I'm interested in that, but for this commission, does noise come into the discussion at all?
I'll let, do you want to answer?
It does not.
Yeah.
What your concern is what's being installed and where and what it looks like and how it affects the historic property. Other sections of city code regulate noise. Commissioner Beason's going to go over that in just a sec. He looked
great.
up the codes for us, so that everybody's clear on what that decibel level is. I mean, obviously, we want neighbors to be courteous to each other, and if there is a problem, it would be resolved through enforcement, but that would not be through the Historic District Commission. That would be through code enforcement.
Yeah, and, so I guess by and large, we have the guidelines here. And so the guidelines are really, as Ms. Thatcher had mentioned about addressing where it's located, how it's located, its size, how visible it is, and then making sure that it's screening. So much of the screening that we have to look at has a lot more to pertain to the fact that we're trying to maintain the historic resource, not much about in the sense that we're trying to block noise or having a functional use to that screen. So you could think of that screen as a way of looking at addressing the other issues within the code, primarily about the decibel levels, which I'm going to just identify here. This is from Ann Arbor City Codes, Chapter 119. There's Section 9.364, maximum permissible sound levels. Table 1 talks about the use of property receiving the sound on residential neighborhoods. So from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., it could be at 61 decibels. And then from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., it's only 55. So that will probably be your limiting factor. I know I've lived next to one of these generators during the summer. They're not great to have, but I can tell that this is a business where you're trying to make it run and try and make it work. You certainly care about your neighbors, so you're probably going to try and do as much as you can. But within our purview, our purview does not really touch base on the decibel and sound levels, although that was the primary concern we got from a lot of our letters from the public.
Just one more thing to add. One of the letters from a neighbor who was concerned provided some ideas for ways to screen or mitigate some of the sound. And just want you out there in TV land to know that the petitioner does have a copy of those suggestions.
Yeah. So the fact that you're thinking about your neighbors and trying to address mitigating the sound issues is 1,000 times steps beyond what I had to endure every summer. I would remind you to make sure that you do set the running time to not in the morning, like any time in the morning. Right in the middle of the afternoon, it's a good time to have it run. I was personally affected by this stuff, but yeah, they're still loud. They sound a little bit like a jet engine, but, especially when you're right next to them. But with the right screening, I think this will probably work out just fine. Again, within our purview of what the guidelines are, in my mind, this meets our guidelines. That's what we have to judge by. Any other discussion? Okay.
You,
Yes,
you
yes.
kind of touched upon it earlier, that it was not submitted with the application formally, although
Yeah.
we talked about it, any sort of site layout, confirming the location. Obviously, there are clearance requirements that it has to be minimum 5 feet from the window, 3 feet from combustibles, but it'd be good to get that at least on record.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
And then a decision on the screening, just so we
Yeah, size,
are all
scale.
clear.
Yeah. So if you're comfortable with us kind of identifying some of that in our motion, we'll make a stab at it. Commissioner Hall made the motion, right? So I think it would be to install generator and screening, right there, somewhere in there. That would be this size, this shape.
But we have to,
Yeah.
We
Determine
may have
How do we
to
wanna-
determine,
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So we don't want it higher than the windows, is that agreed?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, assuming that it provides enough screening,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The applicant stated, Sarah specifically stated that she doesn't want the screening higher than the floor of the porch, which might actually be lower than the top of the generator.
Correct.
So, but do you want it, whichever one is higher?
It's gonna have to be done, so if it means higher than the floor,
Right, okay,
then
yeah. She wants it as high as the floor, but if it has to be higher than the floor, then it sounds like okay. But the desire of the applicant is that it's as close to the height of the porch floor as makes sense, while still screening the device.
Will you have a separate contractor installing the screening, or is it the mechanical guy here?
Kramer.
Kramer? All right.
yeah,
That's a fence,
I'll have
yeah.
it covered.
Yeah, so then we do need to spell it out.
Did someone measure the deck, the height of it?
Didn't measure it, just
Because
in
I
short.
think it's higher.
You might have to
Yeah,
come up
Sarah,
to the
can you-
mic.
Can you come on up so we can, it's
Yeah.
okay.
We need the TV audience,
Formal,
the large TV audience to
oh geez.
hear you.
I may be incorrect, but I think that deck floor is considerably higher than what the top of that generator's gonna be.
Okay.
And would
Yeah.
it be
Turn it down.
possible to dig out and lower the base of the pad to make it?
Kind of
Kramer?
depressed.
No, you don't want to do that because water will get trapped.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you've gotta be able to.
the key thing, we should have the staff approve it. That's the best way. Once you get ready to do it, you bring the drawings and let Jill approve the fence.
Are we comfortable with
Is that-
staff approval on the fence?
Well, I've got a general
Oh, let's hear it.
sentence here if you want to hear it.
Okay.
To install a generator and screening on the condition that the screening walls obscure the unit but do not exceed the height of the window sill.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be.
So you've got a little wiggle room there.
Is it obscure on two sides, one side? And the way you
All
want the
screening
fencing?
from, I just say screening, so that would say to me from the sidewalk.
And I would like the fence end to be on each side.
On each side.
Okay, okay.
All right.
The screening walls,
Cover all three
On
sides.
three
There might not be room on the house side, though. It's gotta
Yeah.
be
Might
3
be
no,
feet
other
away,
three, other three.
right? Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
is
The
it an
U
L
shape
shape or
or-
a U shape?
yeah.
I don't, if it's a U shape, it's just gotta be far enough away from the unit. It-
Yeah.
Just make it L shape, right?
The exhaust comes out the left-hand side of the generator.
Okay,
You're not gonna be able to obstruct that, and you wouldn't want to, very close. 5 feet is the code on a combustible.
okay.
So
Okay.
if the fence is going 3 feet in front of it,
Mm-hmm,
it's gonna have to be something other than a combustible plastic. thick plastic, or if it's wood, it's gotta be 5 feet in front of it.
It's got to be wood.
Can't be plastic either. Plastic would
Okay. so
catch on fire too.
The trellis is gonna be 5 feet off the front of the generator.
Just 5 feet from the front. Okay.
Mechanical code requires that it's 5 feet from any combustible penetration into the house,
Yeah,
or it can be 3 feet, the back wall can be 3 feet off the back, but any other combustible's gotta be 5 feet away.
we know the length of the wall that we're looking at here on the screen. We know the length of that wall in the back is 18 feet. What about the length from the corner to the front of the house? 12? Looks like 12. So if we're, how much away from the,
We're 3 feet off,
3 feet off,
and then we
then
have
the
2 feet
width
of
of it,
generator. That's
then
5,
5 feet,
10.
we're almost at the front of the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. You want to hand that to
Yeah, I didn't make
Commissioner
notes.
Hall?
I'm not, hang on,
She's
one
still-
second.
She's still adjusting the
North
motion
And east.
to make this work.
Sides. I don't know if you can read that, but you can try.
Do I have to read the whole thing again, or just the?
No, just the additions. You
Just a
gotta do it into a
sentence.
mic.
Sorry, Bob.
Hey there.
What's going on? Read it?
Well, I was going to. What's going on here? Okay. Sorry. To install a generator and screening in front of the east side addition of the house on the conditions the screening walls obscure the unit but do not exceed the length, no,
Height.
the height of the windowsill on the northeast sides. But then you crossed out as proposed.
North and east side. Yeah, right.
Does
Because now we're
Commissioner White,
conditioning it.
does Commissioner White second that again?
I assume Bob is.
Bob, do you
Second.
second that
That's
again?
what I'm not sure.
All right, seconded by Commissioner White. All right, is there discussion on the motion?
Yeah, that was good.
I think the motion's fine. I think that the applicant's gonna want it much lower than that, but we've given some wiggle room, as Jill said, but it'll probably be much lower than the windows. It can't be higher according to the motion. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate the noise issues. You know, it's something that the city probably doesn't really even enforce with air conditioners, because there are air conditioners that exceed these decibel levels. So you could keep that in mind as well. So again, the fact that you're really concerned about the air, the noise levels and the kind of screening of it is a good thing. So thank you for trying to make this work. Any other discussion? All right, let's move to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. Thank you. All right, and now the next one is F3.
515 West Madison Street is in the Old West Side Historic District. It's a two-story gable fronter featuring a nearly full-width shed-roof front porch with a pediment on the porch roof above the front door, round tapered porch posts with square bases, and a cut stone foundation. The home first appears in city directories in 1904 as the home of carpenter William Dupsloff. Dupsloffs lived there until at least 1940. It's on the south side of West Madison between 3rd Street and 4th Street. The applicant is seeking HDC approval to construct a 374 single-story addition, rebuild the garage with a second story, and build a large boulder retaining wall. That's not a large wall, that's a large boulder retaining wall. Here's the house, 515 West Madison. To the right, off of the picture here, is Worcester Park, and Worcester Park wraps around behind this house as well. Let's see. Ooh, do I not have a better side? So, front of the house is here. It's got a little bit of a cross gable. This, sticks out maybe 8 feet here on the side. You can't really see much though because there's so much vegetation because of the park. It has a very nice front porch. You can see this little pediment here. It's got some nice detailing. Around the side of the house is this smaller side, secondary porch. It's got an old door, a very cool paneled door. The posts and the decking and the skirting and the guardrails do not appear to be character-defining features. They appear to be replacements, though this roof structure is old and it's got old beadboard up underneath the porch roof. There it is on the side. It's an interesting design because it has this little step down here between the two wings. And take note of this little corner here. This wall is flush, however, and there is a small box bay window on the side of the house there. That's a better view. So the rear wing is lower than the front. And we got a back door back here, and then there's some space behind the house to a modern garage, probably 1960s, I would guess. Certainly not from the period of significance, doesn't show up on any Sanborns or anything like that. Another view of the side of the house. This is actually from the sidewalk. There's a lot of stuff growing up right now. Might not look that way in a couple of months, but right now it does. And this is from out in the street. You can see there's a driveway, there's a shed back here in the corner, and then this is the modern garage, kind of behind the house. This is an original platted lot. It's 66 feet wide by 132 feet deep, so it's 8,700 square feet. And the house is stacked on the west side, so it really has a lovely open side yard feel right now. And it's been that way historically. This is the west side. This is Worcester Park. I'm standing on the sidewalk. You can see the front porch. And this is the roof of the wing in the back. You really can't see the garage back there right now. Might change in the winter, but it's a fairly private house. You can also see that this hill goes up. This lot is already dug down a little bit into the hill, and behind the house, it slopes up very steeply. All right, now we've walked around the back of the house. This is that little westerly wing that I pointed out. This is the first gable in the back, the taller one. And then this is looking between the house, the back of the house, and the modern garage. This is a neighbor's very large garage that backs up to the property line. So really, this backyard is very boxed in between this large garage, the shed, the steep hill that goes up to the park. It feels extremely private back here. You might want to look at things like this in your packet because it seems a little bit washed out here in the scan, but you can see this is the footprint of the proposed addition. It wraps around the back corner of the house. This is the existing footprint of the garage that they're proposing to take down and rebuild as a taller garage. You can see there's not a whole lot of space between the two here. And this is the existing shed. So existing first floor plan here on the top, you can see how much room there is between the two. I'm sorry, I can't read that little number on the screen, but you can see it in your packet a little bit better. The addition is this sort of two rectangles stacked next to each other shape. Right now, this is shown, and the elevations are shown with two doors. Only one is going to be built, but one is proposed on this end, but then there's a sort of a backup door and stairs over here. They just haven't decided yet which one of them to build, so I asked them just to include both of them because they're both facing the back, and I don't think one would have any more of an impact than the other. In fact, if they built them both, I wouldn't really care. But because I don't think that matters facing the back on an addition. And then we have the garage, and the new boulder wall is back here. It's just to give them a couple more feet of level ground. Right now, it's pretty tight here on the side of the garage. I did crawl back there a little bit to get some pictures, but this will just hold the wall back a little bit more and make it a little more convenient to be able to walk all the way around the garage. Footprint of the garage does not change. Okay, here's the existing rear south elevation. You can see that this is the addition across the back. The addition is sort of in two parts. The one on the back is a little bit more modern feeling. These are casement windows with awnings on the bottom. Here's one of those doors that I talked about, and this is the alternate door that could go right here. Sorry, I've got these a little bit out of order. This is the front, and you can see where the addition would protrude out from the side of the house. But it has a more traditional look because it's all double-hung windows. And you can see that they're lined up here. The house, it has a pair of windows here, but other than that, it doesn't really have paired windows. They're single going around the house. So this is not a line all the way down. This is actually flush right here, but this is that back corner of the house. That would not be impacted at all. And this back corner of the existing house would also remain, which differentiates the old work from the new very well. Obviously, this corner would be completely enclosed for the first 3/4 of the way up the wall. But I do think it's appropriate that they left some exposure there. The roof pitches are very low. They're very porch-like, which is appropriate and appreciated. You can see the box bay window is still here. But the thing that would be lost for this addition is this small side porch, about half of which, I believe, the roof structure is probably old, is probably from the period of significance. Then back here in the garage, it's, if you look at your drawings, it's not as elongated as this. It's a little bit distorted on this computer screen, but they would like to add a second story and flip the gable. By doing that, the good thing about that is this roof ridge is slightly higher than the rear ridge of the house right now, of the lower part, but the pitch matches much better than this sort of 60s garage look that you've got with this low-pitched roof. The reason for the tall garage is to put a car lift in so that 2 cars can be lifted up and 2 cars can be driven in underneath them while they're worked on. I believe that's what you use a car lift for. Here's the existing south elevation. So this is the side facing Worcester Park right now, and this is what it would look like. Though this is a little bit misleading because if you're in the park, you're going to be looking down on this building. So it's not like this will be looming up over you because of the steep slope behind it. And this is the existing north elevation. This is what faces the back of the house. It would still have a person door here, but a row of windows are added. I don't know that any of these windows are really going to get any light in between the trees and the house structure being so close, but at least it's got a little bit of glazing. And let's see. Let me see if I can find some materials. All right, so going back out, this side projects 8 feet 9 inches past the existing bay window. That's a pretty large protrusion into the side yard. The saving graces here are that rear corner is preserved up here and this corner back here. And this house has an enormous side yard already. It's not like there's a house, 5 feet away from this next door. So it's not having nearly the impact on the existing historic spacing between features on the lot, because there's just always been a lot of space there. The footprint of the addition is 43% of the original footprint. Pretty much everything you see there right now is original. And the floor area is 24% of the original. The footprint is 374 square feet, and the area is 374 square feet. This meets the Ann Arbor design guideline that says the addition should exceed neither half of the original building's footprint nor half of the original building's floor area. The garage is not historic. The retaining wall would pull the hill 5 or 6 feet away from the garage. Staff does feel that that is appropriate, especially given that you really won't be able to see it from the street at all. There's a small rock retaining wall there now, just sort of piled up. So this is formalizing that a bit. But since you won't be able to see it from anywhere, I do think that it's an appropriate choice of materials. So getting to the standards, I have read to you 2, 9, and 10 already. And I've read some of the guidelines for additions, but let me just hit a few high points. Recommended is constructing a new addition so that there's the least possible loss of historic materials, and so that character-defining features are not obscured, damaged, or destroyed. Designing additions in a manner that makes clear what's historic and what's new. Attaching the exterior addition on an inconspicuous side of a house building and limiting its size and scale in relationship to the historic building. And retaining the historic relationship between buildings, landscape, and open space. designing from the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, it's appropriate to limit the size and scale of the addition in relationship to the historic building so it does not diminish or visually overpower the building or the district. The addition's footprint should not exceed 1/2 of the original buildings nor 1/2 of the original building's total floor area. And it's also not appropriate to construct an addition that significantly changes the proportion of built mass to open space on the individual site. Again, this is a huge space, huge site, so staff does not have concerns about that. It's appropriate to place new walls in a different plane from the historic structure in a subordinate position to the historic fabric. The new walls do not preserve that corner entirely, but it does preserve several feet of it. And I do believe that the design is subordinate because of the very low slung roofs that give it a very porch-like feel. So that concludes staff's report, and staff does believe that the petition meets the Secretary of Interior's guidelines and standards and the City of Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines. Thank you.
All right, Commissioners Rockland, Neplin, Epperson, and Rockland. We're on the review committee. Go ahead and provide a report.
So I agree with pretty much everything that Ms. Thatcher mentioned. The side that does protrude out, that's on where the porch is being removed, it's, I'd say roughly twice the size of what that porch is right now as far as depth or protrusion into the yard. But again, I think it's what, about 8 feet, a little over 8 feet, and then maybe 10 feet high. It is lower than the bay window that's on the side there, that little box out window that's on the side of the house. And then it wraps around. It looked like from looking in the packet that there was nobody on site to speak with, but that the back wall of the house is remaining. There are a couple openings there, but none of the windows are original. Even that little window on the side of the house is not original. The one thing that we did discuss, I think, mostly was the size of the garage itself. And that gap with the new addition on the back, there's only about 5 feet between the addition and then the garage placement. And then that's going to be, the garage is going to be as high as that, the roof, the lower roof that they're showing here. So it's good, it's all the way in the back of the property. It is, I think, for the most part, not directly visible from each side, but it is pretty large. So that's all I have to add.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. Just, I guess that was sort of, where we were kind of talking the most about this is just, I guess, trying to visualize how high that new garage is going to be. And it's a little tricky because the addition's a one-story addition, and the rear wing is the two-story part that's going to be as high as the garage. But it'll definitely be like a real narrow hallway back there next to the garage that we were trying to visualize out there. And, yeah, I guess well, that's it, and I'll save the rest for discussion. Yeah.
Okay. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name for the record, and sign in? And if you have anything to add to the staff report or review committee report, please do so.
I'll sign in when I leave. I'm Mark Reuter of Reuter Associates Architects, and the representing owner here, Don Parrish, tonight. And one of the things that Don does is restore early 1930s Ford cars. And right now, 2 of them are stored outside under cover, and so the objective of increasing the height of this garage is to get a car lift in there so they can get up high enough so that they can also work underneath. And so that set the height of the garage, essentially. We're trying to get by with 12-foot sidewalls, because if we go above 12-foot sidewalls, then we have to have a deeper foundation, and I don't think that exists on that garage. So we're talking about maybe thinking about reconstructing that garage and adding additional space up, or else completely tearing it down, new foundation, and the higher sidewalls. We reoriented the gables because I think you can kind of see in the elevations of the garage that if we use a scissors truss in there, that enables us to get the cars up higher, up in that scissors truss area and not go as high. The other thing about the space between the garage and the house, which is, it's set at 5 feet right now for fire separation reasons, because we have so much glazing on that side, we need 5 feet or more. But the thing that the owner is proposing to do, we have high windows along that part of the garage there, which are above any kind of tools hanging on the garage side walls. And also, when you're sitting in the kitchen there, you're looking almost out level with the tops of the existing garage doors. So the windows are set at a height, so you'd be looking out into these windows, and there's some transparency going on there. The other thing is, he would be proposing to, have a vine or a espalier, something like a pear along the side of that garage. So as you're looking out the side of the little porch area there, you're not necessarily looking at siding of the garage, but as a nice greenery, which gives some sort of nice depth to that garage. So we talked about that for quite a bit, because we recognize that that's a narrow little space in there, and how do you make that attractive? I think the comment about that wall facing the garage is, we're really not changing that wall any, as you mentioned. We might take out that existing window that's not historic and use that as a pass-through. Otherwise, that wall pretty much remains. So I think that's about all I have to add about that. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right. Any commissioners have questions for the applicant? All right, well, I think you can be seated. I'll move to the public hearing. Are there members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? All right, I'll now close the public hearing portion. Would any commissioners like to make a motion in this application?
Make a motion.
Moved by Commissioner Epperson.
Did I find it?
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 515 West Madison Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to add a 374-square-foot rear addition, rebuild the garage, and install a boulder retaining wall as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the house and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for all additions, residential additions, and new construction, and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. In particular, standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for new additions, district or neighborhood setting, and building site.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Is there discussion on the motion? Commissioner Rockland?
Sure. Yeah, I think that the issues here are, there's a couple. I'd say that, one is just, it's sort of a rear addition that comes around to the side, and so we've seen this kind of project before, and usually there's something in the back of the house that's preventing a true rear addition, and I think that's the case here, where they've got the existing garage, they want to reuse that space, and so they want an addition. It's getting very close to that garage, but also it's coming out into the side yard. I think in this case, there's a couple things that are, in my mind, saying that is okay according to the standards. Staff pointed it out, but just how it's low. The roof is low. The proposed addition's 1 story, and you can still read the corner of the rear wing from the sidewalk. I think the other thing, that side of the house, besides the porch, which I guess we could talk about, but that side of the porch, you would think that the rear wing would bump in. It typically does. It doesn't always. But when it doesn't bump in, it sort of lacks that detail of that bump in. So it's not obscuring that either, or having to deal with that at all. Maybe also because the house is covered in modern siding that, you know, it's just seems to be missing a character-defining features on the elevation, and this side addition, to me, yeah, isn't obscuring anything. I don't know if you want to, the other issue that I think is just the very tall garage and the fact that the addition is bumping up so close to it. To me, it's not ideal, but I think that it's very far back on the lot. The lot does go up from the sidewalk, and it's a quality where I think it will be a new addition, sort of awkwardly close to another new addition. And it's a question of, does that impact the historic structure or not? So I just want to kind of bring that up as a discussion point.
Yeah, so on that point, Commissioner Reckland, I look at the City of Ann Arbor District guidelines for all additions, the not appropriate part, construction in addition that significantly changes the proportion of a built mass to an open space on the individual site. So this addition moving back, it does change the kind of built mass to open site, but the key here is does it significantly change that? And to me, with the large open side lot, I can't, it does change it, but I wouldn't say significantly. Not significantly enough to change how you read the historic resource.
Is this backing up to the park?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the porch is definitely a nice, those are the side one that we're looking at right now. The details on it are definitively kind of the old details. I had taken off my porch and had that same kind of detailing on it. It's a similar house layout to mine, in fact, too, so. But yeah, in terms of losing that historic resource, I still feel like the overall character-defining features of the house are not that side porch necessarily, but much more the front and that side little bump out with the kind of French roof thing. And the gable itself, so.
Yeah, and I think although we'd be losing a few of those windows on that back portion, they're not character defining.
Yeah.
I think really for that back lower portion, it's the volume of that part of the home, and you'll still be able to read that significantly with the addition.
And Commissioner Epperson, you had mentioned in the site visit that those back windows were not original?
Correct.
Yeah. So maybe the openings may have been?
Yes, the openings.
Yeah, but the windows themselves,
The windows are not.
yeah. This is a technical question that doesn't really have merit on this decision, but one of those again. The downspout, I see 3 downspouts in this corner. So Mark, you'll probably have to handle a lot of moisture in that area and how to route it around the new roof and it's a neat collection of 3 downspouts in one spot, but
Depends on where it crops.
it goes all the way around and crosses over, and, yeah. But,
Well, the downspouts are the least of our worries there.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
all of that Turner Park Court Hill, we've done projects on Turner Park Court over the years, and it's a giant oozing of water out of that entire hill. So part of our project will be to intercept that water with the garage with a edge drain all around the garage, around the retaining wall. The retaining wall is partly also to keep the hill from sliding
Sliding
down
down, yeah.
the hill, because it's very steep. It's
Yeah.
pretty steep, so.
and it'll let the water out, and then,
So there's there's kind of a water issue right now with the house, so we're well aware of that. So the downspouts will be routed into an edge drain along the driveway, so that, and we have sump pumps that will be going, so all of that should be taken care of by an edge drain along the driveway, because there's quite a lot of length of the driveway there for the water to be infiltrated, so. And the downspouts then will be fed in to that also, so there shouldn't be runoff there, hopefully. And we should be dry inside, that's the
Yeah.
plan.
all right, any further discussion? All right, let's move to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. All right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. All right, thank you. The next one, F4, 204 Cook Ave. It's Cook, right?
Yep, 204 Cook Avenue is in the Old West Side Historic District, just like everything else tonight. This is a two-story gable fronter that features a full-width hip-roof front porch, shingles on the second floor, and wood-lap siding on the first floor, and a single-car garage with double-leaf doors, and lovely exposed rafter tails underneath the eaves, which you'll see in a minute. It appears in the 1924 city directory as the home of Mrs. Mary Millspaugh, widow of Paul. In 1931, Gordon O. and Bertha Baumgardner occupied the house, and Gordon was a bookkeeper and later repairman for Laramie Battery and Electric Service. The house has a modern one-story rear addition. Home construction began on John K. Avenue in 1916, and in 1928, the street name was changed to Cook Avenue. Only speculating that that's because just a few blocks to the east was John Street. I would imagine that that would be kind of confusing. Let's see, the house is on the north side of Cook between South Main and First Street, so the very first block off of South Main. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to construct a 363-square-foot addition, 45 square feet on the first floor and 318 square feet on top of an existing rear addition. So here's the house as we see it today. The, let's see, west side of the house, pretty close to the property line. There's a fence running down part of this, but no real changes proposed along that elevation. This is the view from the sidewalk. We've got a modern brick two-track driveway going back to a leaf swing, doors on a shed roof, nearly flat roof garage. The roofing appears to be metal siding, but it is a character-defining feature for sure, and it shows up on the Sanborn maps within the period of significance. So this is the modern rear addition. It was built, I think, in the 80s. It's very plain, it's very nice, it meets all the standards and guidelines. It's got this side door and some little stairs. From the back, I believe that this is cementitious siding, and it's notched in at the corners. Wood. Oh, it's wood? Okay, thank you, wood siding. Another view, you can see that the garage is pretty close to the house in the rear addition, but there's some spacing there. This is just looking up at the nice rafter tails, because I always like seeing that detail. And the shingles on the second floor. So the proposal here, this is the existing on the left. We've got a notched into the rear addition, which is a laundry and mudroom. These are those stairs that you saw going up. The proposal is to add small amount, this is the 45 square feet here, to sort of enclose those stairs going up to expand the mudroom. And the best way to think about this when you're trying to visualize it is that this portion would go almost up to where those brick two-tracks are, and slightly in front of the back corner of the garage. Then on the second floor, we have a slightly inset second floor addition. It's inset a little bit less than this first floor is now, I believe, or it's, yeah, a little bit less. And it cantilevers out over the rear, which isn't dashed in on this one, but I think you could see it on a different one. You may have to look in your packet, because I think it just didn't photocopy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's in your packet. And that also sits on top of the little mudroom addition. And importantly is that this is the outline of the addition overhang, so it cantilevers in the back and on the side, and it extends a little bit past the first two-track that's closest to the house, the first brick track. Here we are, south elevation existing and proposed. That's the first floor, 48 square foot addition, and this is the second floor, cantilevered over it. From the east elevation, you can see that this is just a rectangle turned the opposite way and sitting on top of the addition. Has side-facing gables. The windows are pretty plain and simple. Lap siding is compatible with the existing house. Here is the rear or north elevation. The garage right now pretty much aligns with the corner of the house. It's not attached, there is space between, it's just the perspective that you're seeing here. And you can see how, so this is where the original corner of the house is, and then the first floor would go out, and then the second floor would go out beyond that. You can see that there's still a corner maintained on the west side as well. And this is the west elevation. All right, let me go through the standards. I have read to you 2, 9, and 10. I've read many of these to you. I'm just going to pick out some of the more pertinent ones. Designing new additions in a manner that makes clear what's historic and what is new. This design does that very well, especially that sort of cross-gabled look makes it very clear. Locating the attached exterior addition at the rear or on an inconspicuous side of a historic building and limiting its size and scale in relation to the historic building. This is when staff starts to have a little bit of heartache over this addition because of the way that it protrudes out into the side yard, side yard over the driveway, and how the second floor is larger than the first floor. And let me go through these first. From the guidelines for district or neighborhood setting, not recommended is introducing new construction that's visually incompatible with the historic district or that destroys historic relationships within the setting. This is a very important one because you guys will have to decide if the relationship is compromised between the garage and the existing house or not. From building site, not recommended is removing or radically changing buildings. No, we don't need that one. We're not removing anything. Limiting the size and scale of the addition so it does not diminish or visually overpower the building or the district. Again, that's staff's concern about the visual overpowerment of both the historic home and the historic garage. It does meet the guidelines for not exceeding half of the original building's footprint or half of the original building's total floor area. It's not appropriate to design a new addition so that the size and scale in relation to the historic property are out of proportion. And it's not appropriate to construct an addition that significantly changes the proportion of built mass to open space on the individual site. The second floor addition is a concern to staff in this regard. Additions to residential structures from the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines say that it's appropriate to place new walls in a different plane from the historic structure in a subordinate position to the historic fabric. This is not a problem at all on the west corner of the house, but in the east corner of the house, the rear corner is obscured from all the way up the sidewall of the house and no longer exists. There's no trace of it. It's important to retain the historic relationship between buildings, landscape features, and open space. And it's not appropriate to introduce a new feature that's visually incompatible with or that destroys the patterns of the site or the district. Materials include proposed windows are vinyl clad JELD-WIN casement and awning. Cladding is cement board with 4.5-inch exposure, which is compatible with the historic house's 4-inch exposure wood bevel siding on the first floor. The area of the footprints are 34% of the original footprint and 45% of the original floor area. I already mentioned my concern about the northeast corner of the house, the back of the house. Staff is concerned about whether the first and second floor additions on the east side of the house along the driveway interfere with the visibility of the garage, which is a contributing historic resource. Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for additions say that an addition should be constructed so that character-defining features are not obscured, and the SOI guidelines for site recommend designing new exterior additions or adjacent new construction which is compatible with the historic character of the site and which preserves the historic relationship between the building or buildings, landscape features, and open space. So the constraint on this house is that the lot is very small. It's 3,317 square feet. It's less than half the size of the previous addition that we just looked at. And there's already a rear addition that encroaches into the required rear setback. And a variance will be required if this is approved from the Zoning Board of Appeals to decrease the rear setback a little bit more from it's already not meeting the 30-foot rear setback. Staff is concerned that the design deviates too much from the design guidelines. The new walls in the northeast corner are not subordinate to the historic fabric, and the second floor addition interferes with the historic character of the site, including historic relationships between the house, driveway, and garage. Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, Representative Rockland, on the review committee, please give us your report.
Sure. Well, this house, as you can see from the photos, it's just really has been very well restored and maintained. It just looks really great when you walk up to it. This is especially evident just because of like the surrounding homes on the block are like the opposite, very poorly maintained. And so this house would be just, it would shine anywhere, but on this block in particular, you know, when you drive up to it, it's almost, it's just a great surprise to see it. So then, I guess the other things on the site are, there's a very large hedge to the east. That is on their property. And it does block sort of an eyesore property that's to the east that is in very poor condition. It's much deeper into the lot, you know, interestingly, than theirs. It's a very deep two-story house. And then on the other side, they're right up against the property line, but the home on the other side, I don't think it had a rear addition. It was a similar size to their house. The rear property line, yeah, you walk in the backyard, it's a very nice backyard, but it's, you know, the rear fence is right there. It's a nice backyard, but there's doesn't feel like there's much space, as you would expect if there, you know, it's already non-conforming on the rear setback. Yeah, I guess just looking ahead to the conversation, it's just a very challenging site to build on, and, you know, just the conversation I'm sure we'll have, we'll deal with. They have a creative approach to adding, you know, what the space that they need, and, yeah, just looking forward to the discussion there on how it meets the standards.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add, just to reiterate a couple of the points that Commissioner Rockland made, that the house is very well maintained, and they've made a lot of improvements here and there just to really make it shine even more, and they're really passionate about, you know, maintaining the house for long term. And the backyard is very challenging. There's really not a lot of space for any further addition in the back. So that's all.
All right. The applicant, please come forward, state your name for the record, and sign in. We also have word that you have some other files that you'd like to share with us, some images.
Yeah, we'll try to plug in real quick, and if that doesn't work, Mark has offered to pass out a physical copy, but this might be, well, we'll just go. We'll go with the physical copy. That's why we hired him.
Thank you.
We'll share. No, all right, thank you.
We'll kind of guide you through, but obviously you're free to flip. I can't control that. My name is Scott Wiedemeyer. I'm the applicant. This is my wife, Chelsea.
Hello.
Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for hearing our addition. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Commissioner Rockland and Epperson, for the very kind comments about our house. It was a harrowing few days up on a ladder restoring the soffit. What are they called? The statue, what did you call them? The
Exposed rafters.
exposed rafters, yeah. So thanks for noticing that. Here's what we're trying to do. Right, it's a very challenging site. We've got encroachments on all sides. It's a very small area to work with. We're really excited about living in this house long-term. We just got married. I'm a stepfather. We'd like to grow our family. And so this addition allows us the space to grow our family and add 2 additional bedrooms to the house, which is sort of interesting. The previous owners did make this work in the existing house, and they did it by chopping the master bedroom in 2 and having 2 kids sleep in either side with the entrance to the back bedroom having to go through the first bedroom. So I don't envy their life, and we're trying to give our kid and our future kid a little bit more privacy on this block. If you look at the second page, which I'm sure you've already looked at, you can see our rendering of how it's going to look. It's kind of the money shot. Obviously, the concern here is it going to block the garage? Is it going to really change the proportions? And we know that, right, we are changing the corner of that house. We absolutely know that's something that's up for consideration here. But we think it still leaves the garage as a strong focal point. The hedges on the side of the driveway have gotten quite large. We're planning to significantly cut those back or put in some different landscaping to really make it easier to see the garage from all angles. If you can also see in one of the pages, we took a lot of care to restore the garage. So I don't know if that's, we're trying to share that we're trying to be good stewards of this home. We're trying to really do something that meets our needs in a tasteful way, that plays with a bunch of challenging setbacks, that distinguishes new from old. We really like the design Mark has drawn up. We think it's very tasteful. But that's sort of what we're working with, is trying to get that space. So we're trying to, we restored the garage. Those doors were hidden behind plywood, and we ripped off the plywood and repaired and patched in some new pieces. As mentioned, we restored the soffits. We put in the 2-track, so we're really excited about trying to restore this home and keep it historical and keep it sort of a gem on the block. The other piece for consideration, and Chelsea, if you want to jump in, she's used to me kind of just rambling, excuse me, is we're not trying to distract from the issue at hand, which is our house, and I know that's what you're discussing here. But as Commissioner Rockland said, this is a little bit of a challenging block. We feel like it's the forgotten block of the Old West Side, and I hope none of my neighbors are watching public access TV at this hour. I don't think they are, because they're all absentee landlords who maybe do one small piece of maintenance per year. This year, our neighbors let their trees grow almost over the sidewalk, and then in one fell swoop, they cut them down and threw them in our backyard, pretty much. So we're used to a lot of people that are just not taking care of this block. We're surrounded by dilapidated rentals, and you can see that. Sadly, the historic John Cook home, for whom the street is named, is almost in sort of condemned condition. There's holes in the roof. It's sort of falling down on us, and it's right up against us. So we think the best solution is, rather than pushing further into the backyard with the addition, is to take a little bit of space over the driveway where we have a lot of room, especially considering the hedges are on our property, and we're going to open those up to make more of a yard and more of a driveway there. So bottom line, we're trying to find the best solution here, and we appreciate your help in doing so. We know it's a challenging site. We're really excited to try to be the anchor home on this block. I think we're one of 2 single-family residents on this block, and we want to try to restore the historic nature of this block over time. Giving us a way to grow a family here helps us do that. Thanks for your consideration. Anything to add, Chelsea or Mark?
Yeah, so Jill could bring up the second floor plans on the screen, that would be great. And so in looking at giving them the space that we needed, it's a very challenging site. Normally, we could go back, we could go deep into the backyard, but because this lot is quite small, the zoning is R4B, we had a lot of site constraints. So traditionally, when you add an addition on the back, you have a problem getting to that back addition. Luckily, we had an existing fairly large bathroom there, and we were able to create a 3-foot corridor through that bathroom to the back. And we still have enough room to meet all the code minimums for the plumbing along that reconfigured bathroom there. That means when you get to the back, then you're in the middle kind of a piece of structure there. So as you look across at the 2 bedrooms with the bath in between, the bath in between is a 5-foot standard width bath. And when you enter a bath from the end like that, a 5-foot, the plumbing clearance code minimums in front of showers and toilets and so on pretty much dictates a 5-foot wide space. If we were to enter a 5-foot wide bathroom from the side, we can make those 4 feet wide. But when we're entering this direction, the code minimum clearances don't work. So I couldn't take out a foot from the bathroom there, so I had to sort of leave that. And then if you look at the dimensions, if you can see them someplace, I'm not sure you can, the dimensions on the bedrooms are really not that much above minimum code standards of 70 square feet. One is about 9 by 9, which is 81 square feet. So taking more space out of the width of those bedrooms gets to be pretty problematic in terms of their functionality. So they're really at sort of minimum size right now, and I felt that we just simply couldn't take any more room out of those bedrooms up there and make them useful for today's standards. And if Jill then could go to the elevation, the west, east elevation, I'm sorry. We looked at how to handle a configuration from the west. And we could have lopped off the closet there that is towards the south. And then we have, I tried that on several renderings and looked at it over time. And when you have a sort of an unbalanced piece of architecture sitting on top of a lower piece, it creates a very ungainly feel. So I felt it was important to add that closet, which also gave us more room in the bedroom, and it improves the balance of the house on that small plinth below. They're double cantilevers, which is sort of hard to do structurally, but we can do that fairly easily with this arrangement. So that's about all I have to add. I'm going to be around for questions, and Scott and Chelsea will too. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I got a couple questions.
Should we sit down or stay up here?
You can stay up.
Stay up,
You can stay
yeah.
up, yeah.
Is the roof, I see asphalt shingles is called out as the material for the roof of the addition. Is it the same, is it to match the existing roof?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, there's asphalt shingles currently there.
Yeah, and you're gonna try to match that.
Exactly, yep.
And I just want to try to understand, because I don't have a roof plan, I don't think, but is there?
No, there's no roof plan.
Like, the gable of the addition, like on the bottom drawing, what's happening, like that connection there? Like with the existing house, like is stuff gonna be poured? like, I'm just trying to
Normally, we would have wanted to extend that existing roof
Right.
plane back so that it did not create a waterproofing area there, but
Right.
I felt we should maintain the feel of the end of the house by maintaining that roof line back there. So what would exist there would be a small membrane flat roof part on that would enable us to cut the rear gable, or leave the rear gable where it is. So that's what you're seeing there is a,
And then you flash into the existing house essentially, right?
Yeah.
Or do something
Yeah.
along with that siding there, so it
Right.
doesn't, yeah.
right,
Okay.
right. I've done this before, and it's not hard to do or expensive, but it does preserve the feel of that existing gable.
Mark, looking at this same view, the east elevation and then the rendering, just trying to get a feel for the east elevation, it looks like there's maybe two beams coming out,
Right.
supporting, or maybe supporting, or actually supporting and then in the rendering, I don't see them, but can you describe the design intent for that area, please?
Yeah, the rendering was done by yours truly, not Mark, so if you have any gripes with it, don't blame him. But it is to
Not at
scale,
all.
so
Just-
we didn't include those little beams, but Mark can speak to it.
So
Okay.
in order to do a double cantilever, we have to put two beams lower. The advantage, the good thing we have going for us here is the old mudroom, or the mudroom addition from the 80s is about 4 inches lower than the existing, I think about right, 4 inches lower than the existing house. And we're able to cut out the top plates of that and put these like two 12-inch LVLs in, clear across the house, cantilevered out towards the east.
Right.
Then those will be low enough so that we can use 2x10 floor joists going the other direction. So that enables it to get the double cantilever.
How far does it extend again, the full cantilever effect?
The cantilever on the north side is 3 feet.
That's the part that we're seeing here on the east?
Yes, and it's not quite symmetrical because the one on the south is, I think about 2'6".
So the north is, okay, so
Is,
that,
north is 3 feet,
that part is 3 feet right there?
yeah.
Okay.
That's going east.
No, the north,
That's
the
the east.
cantilever to the north is 3 feet. and-
Coming out of the screen is north.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So that's 3 feet towards
Oh,
us.
sorry, the cursor was moving
Sorry.
east.
Sorry.
Yeah, so that one on the east is how far again? The one that we're looking at
The
here?
one on
these
the
little-
east is about 3 feet, I think it is, also.
And you got the structural loads checked? I'm just worried that it might be much more than 12 inches in the end.
What?
Instead of a
The
12-inch LVL, it might be an 18-inch or 16.
No, because we really have only wall loads there, we don't have roof loads. And we have floor loads and wall loads, but we don't have the roof loads, which are in the back, so that, I haven't done the structural calculations on that yet, but after doing this for 30 or 40 years, I intuitively know what kind of sizes we generally need like this, and I doubt if they would get to be deeper than that. So if they did, they would probably be increased to 3 instead of 2, so.
Then what's shown here?
Something perhaps to mention too, it shows that we're extending or expanding the mudroom, and that's actually mislabeled. What currently shows as a mudroom in the existing floor plan is actually an extension of the kitchen. So this allows us to add a new mudroom where there currently is one, which is a helpful feature in a house like this where you walk in the front door and the living room is just sort of there. There's no closet, there's no sort of hall. So we feel like that's a tasteful and functional piece there. In case anyone was thinking, why do the rich need to get richer in terms of mudrooms? Why do we need the world's largest mudroom?
In the laundry, there's also a bathroom down there in that laundry too.
And this doesn't affect it because the color can be whatever, but is the intention to have the teal or emerald, whatever the color that you've put in the rendering? To separate it from the house?
That's something we're looking at, and we were sort of open to if the historic district had any recommendations on that, as we know.
It
sort
has
of-
nothing, like, it can be, I just was curious, like, are you trying to make it different than the house?
I think
terms
that's
of
our,
color.
I don't know if you want to comment on that, Chelsea. I think that's kind of our, yeah, that's our intent, is to show, because it is sort of, a little bit of, we wanted to say this is the addition. This is something that's sort of added on to the historical piece. So we're considering a different color that's within the palette. Originally, Mark, you'd drawn up a design that had a cement board, sort of square panels, and that was an interesting way to set that up off as well. And we liked the clapboard more, but again, if the commission has a really strong recommendation on a way to set that apart, we'd be certainly open to
It can,
ideas.
the color can be changed, it has no,
Okay, our 6-year-old wanted rainbow.
yeah.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right, you may be seated, thank you. I'm sure we'll probably bring you back up eventually, yeah. Let's see, moving on to the public hearing. Are there members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? Lots of members. I'll now close the public hearing portion of the application. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application?
I'll do it.
Moved by Commissioner Rockland.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 204 Cook Avenue, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to add 363 square feet to an existing rear addition as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the house and surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for all additions, residential additions, and new construction, and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for new additions, district or neighborhood setting, building site, and windows.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion on the motion? Well, it's a tough one to start with. So I'm just going to hold hone in on the regulations more than anything. So we have Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitations, 2, 9, and 10. I think we're looking at 9 in terms of new additions, exterior alterations related to new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. And then at the end of number 10, it also says, new additions related to new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. So I feel like if this addition were removed, the back end of the roof would be pretty impaired. Wouldn't be the same as what it was. The rafters would be gone, the back end of the roof. It's a small little spot, but it would occur certainly on both sides. So that I see as a potential conflict with the interior standards. I was trying to look at this going, well, okay, how can I look at this and say that it might fit? And I'm not seeing that it might fit, I'm seeing more that it may not fit. And especially on what Jill said on her point for staff concerns on the guidelines and the visibility of the garage. So, that's a big one that we look at about visually overpowering the building. I can't say that this addition visually overpowers the historic resource, but it does visually overpower the resource of the garage. And then, what was the other one I outlined here? Additions to historic residential structures underneath the City of Ann Arbor District guidelines, placing new walls in different plane from the historic structure in a subordinate position to the historic fabric. So here we have walls that are protruding out to the left, which does, this rendering particularly, we're not going to see it like this in real life, right? We have to remember that. This certainly tells us that it overpowers it for sure. So we have to kind of really think of that rendering, the one that was provided not just by the owner himself, but in the packet themselves too. Like, how do we really get our eyes in here? So I'm going to rely a little bit more on what Commissioner Epperson and Rockland saw out there themselves as well and what they might see. But I definitely see conflicts with some of the guidelines, unfortunately. I'd like to say that I don't see conflicts, but I do.
I also found issue with whether it's subordinate or not to the main structure. It is towards the rear of the house, which is much preferred, but it does stand out, and it appeared in some of the site photos that side is highly visible, much more so than the west side of the home from the street. Just looking for the language here. And the Secretary of the Interior Standards, number 9, the new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing. I keep hanging up on that. But again, maybe it's much more heightened in the elevation drawing and not the experience of it, but it's hard to accept that at this point.
Any other
Maybe we
discussion?
can talk about it.
I think, interested to hear more discussion on it. I'm stuck on standard 9 as well, just the second half of it. It's certainly differentiated from the old.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's very modern, and the window placement is very modern. The fact that I guess the second story cantilevering is also a modern element, but I don't know if it's like helping in this instance. To me, that's sort of going to the second part of standard 9, where it says you have to differentiate, but then also, it has to be compatible with the massing, size, scale, architecture features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. And I think that, I like the design, I like the modern window placement. Like I said, the cantilever is something that to me is like drawing attention to it, like your eye will see that and be interested in it, and so is that gonna overpower, on this small site and on the visible side of the house? So that's, I guess, where I'm finding a struggle, to find that it's meeting the standards.
Yeah.
Any thoughts there?
Is there any pictures of the west side? I can't remember.
There was something very early on.
Was there something
Kind
early?
of
Not
is
from the
there.
street, though?
There you
Yeah, there it is.
So they were able to see anything.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
could really, like, I could tell you, like, the one thing,
We couldn't walk back there because the neighbor had piled up all the branches that Scott was
Right.
talking about.
Lovely.
Yeah, we couldn't get over
nice.
there.
couldn't get your way through
But that's what it is. I mean, it's
That-
just a very,
Right.
it's right on the,
Overgrown.
yeah.
What I was getting at is for lack of a better term, the like smashing of the mass of the addition into the gable of the existing home and taking issue with that.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, and it's like it's going over the gable in that instance, on that side.
Yeah, and we have to look to it, like, a big part of this is about the historic features. And it's like, what are the historic features of this house? And to me, it's those gables with the exposed rafters. You know, and fortunately and unfortunately, the new homeowner accentuated those rafters, really making it even more of a kind of a accentuated feature. Yeah. Any other discussion?
Well, he doesn't have much choice but to go the direction he's going. And that's the problem.
Yeah, that is part of the problem. I guess we could always question, like, well, everyone wants another bathroom up on the second floor, especially if you're expanding your family, but I could look at the floor plan and say, well, what if they did away with the bathroom in the middle and made the two bathrooms right together? You know, that's a possibility, but we
Two
can't, we're not
bedrooms.
designing it. Yeah, just if you're looking up the second floor plan, the new bath that's in the back.
Yeah.
Sure, there's
Yeah,
a
that
way
would-
to make it smaller, of
that would
course,
be
yeah.
Swink it in and.
Yeah, well,
But, yeah,
Yeah.
we're not here to design it. We're here to decide if the current application.
We're not here to decide, but I want to ask another question. Like, if you pulled the like, I don't even know if this is possible, pulled the mass of the addition further away so it wasn't touching the cantilever would get way bigger, but like I take issue with it jammed up against it. And I know they don't really have a choice, I
Yeah.
get that, but like, if it was pulled away somehow,
which part is jamming into which part?
the two gables, the gable of the addition
Yeah.
that's running, I believe, north-south, is that correct?
This gable here?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
East-west?
Well, yeah, but it's coming down and jamming
Where they
into
meet.
where
Yes,
they meet,
mhm, yeah.
especially on the other side.
Right.
Like,
East.
if that was pulled back further into the backyard where they weren't touching, but I'm not here to design it.
More like the way it is on the west elevation?
Which one's the west?
With
Yeah,
the-
we're looking
this
at
one.
that.
With the offset.
Or is
Oh.
that
No,
still?
not the offset,
No, I think he's talking about.
He's talking about the
Right
actual
there.
gable.
pushing it back into the backyard, so that,
So that
So
the
that-
existing
I don't
roof
know how you do
is
a structure.
disturbed.
So that the
right,
roof
you're not-
itself
you're not
isn't,
touching the existing,
I see.
Right. Yeah, but then you have the issue of
Yeah.
the setback.
okay,
right.
fine,
No, I know.
yeah, that's a
It's a
riddle, I
challenge.
don't know.
So I think as far as,
He's getting a variance anyway. He's gonna have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
I'm
ahead,
just
sorry.
wondering, as far as defining the character defining features, I guess, of the house itself, I think that I've identified the roof line and the rafter tails, but I think also it is a gable fronter, and it's very simple in its floor plan and its footprint, and the corners of the house are really, I think, critical, and I think for me, that's where I'm having issue with the addition completely swallowing up that back corner of the most visible portion of the house, unfortunately. Like, that's, I think there is some, little bit of obscuring, I think it does start to bleed within the, the relationship and scale of the rest of the site and the massing. But I think for me, my hangup is that corner more so than that massing and that relationship. So I'd like to see how that could work in other ways, like if it was pushed back or if that closet wasn't there, if that corner could be defined somehow.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in that, but I think that's, to me, harping on the character defining features of the house.
Sir, not that this may or may not matter, is there a chimney?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know, Jim.
There is.
It's interior.
Yeah, non-character defining, for the most part. Simple.
Yeah, can't even see it from the street.
No. Yeah, can you go to the front photo again? Yeah, so I'd agree with Commissioner Epperson on what she just elaborated on, you know, the form of this and the historic resources. This is the view that we will look at as the resource. And deviating from that mass, you know, if it's out on the back, it would be something we could probably accept. But back on the side and bumping out and cantilevering it, it really does draw attention, as Commissioner Rockland alluded to. Any further discussion?
Well, why don't we have him come up? Come back up.
Come back up.
Sort of after hearing your discussion here, I think we've sort of talked that it might be a good idea to take some of this consideration into account, and maybe if we get asked to have this tabled to the next meeting, if that's possible, for consider these things, we'd appreciate that.
How does protocol work with that? Because they would have to reapply?
If you didn't, if you vote on it and it is denied, they would have to reapply. If
Yeah,
you
we
move to
could
table
defer.
it, I'd need new drawings in just a couple of weeks. But as long as you think you can turn something around, if you want to try to address these concerns, that's up to you guys, if you want to postpone it or not. If you do
I
want to do that,
recommend we
if you do want to do that, just postpone it to the November 14 meeting.
Are you
You've got-
okay
you've
with
got
that?
enough time to do that. That's-
Does that work with your time frame?
November 14th meeting, you able to get all the information to us?
We can get all the information in.
Yeah.
Okay. I recommend that we postpone to November 14th meeting.
All right. We all agree?
Agreed.
Good idea?
Support?
Support?
Yes.
Supported by
All right.
Commissioner Rockland. Do we need to do anything else procedurally?
No, you're okay. But you got to vote on it.
We have to
What's
vote
up
on
with-
the.
what's up
On the
with objection?
postponement.
Oh,
Without
Yeah.
objection.
All right. Well, I'm gonna do the vote part. It'll be fun. Oh, okay, fine. No, I'll do the vote. All those in favor of the Bob proposal, say yes.
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 To
All those
postpone to the November 14th meeting.
Proposal.
to postpone to the November 14th.
Yes.
Evan, was that you who supported that? Or
I
Dave?
supported
It was Commissioner Rockland.
Yeah, I
who
jumped
supported
in
it.
ahead of it.
Got it.
Well done.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Hopefully, we'll see you next month, and we'll keep going on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
we'll get there.
Yep. All right. On to new business, G1, annual election.
Yes. The nominating committee is made up of Vice Chair Anna Epperson. And the Chair of the nominating committee is Bob White. And I want to thank John Beeson for his outstanding work being on the executive committee
Thank you very much.
and Chair for the Historic District Commission. Thank you.
You're here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And the new nominations, if nominated, they will serve. If if nominated, they will run, and if elected, they will serve. Evans Hall for chair, Anna Epperson for vice chair, and David Rockland for secretary.
Support.
Without objection?
Is there discussion on the motion or?
Questions?
Evan was.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
there's
there is.
I just want to, like, I want to be very, open about, it's hard for me to make a lot of the winter meetings. Is that okay? I'm not currently,
That's Kurt.
yeah, right. Like,
She's willing to do that for you. She's got
Anna,
your
are you
back.
saying that, or is Bob saying that,
I'm accepting vice chair, I'm accepting that.
that responsibility? Okay.
fall on somebody else as well, so.
Okay.
Yes.
Who was secretary?
Dave.
Dave Rockland.
Rock?
Hey, Rob,
So that happens.
Yeah.
Get the script.
You'll both get scripts. All right, I call for a vote.
Oh, yeah. For all those in favor of the, what is it?
Do you vote for yourself?
of the non,
Have
The nomination. Of the nomination. Please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. All right, the nomination carries forward.
Congratulations.
Thank you all.
Congratulations.
congratulations.
When's Evan's first meeting?
Yeah, when's
I
that
guess is
start?
my question.
Next month.
Yeah, I'm
November.
not here at that meeting, actually. I have a game that night. I'm not kidding.
Congratulations, Anna.
Starting off on the right foot.
Go.
You said winter.
Yeah.
It's not technically winter
Well,
yet.
I should say hockey season.
Hockey season.
I'll whisper in here.
Nice time.
All right,
When's my term up?
today.
Today?
Yeah,
Oh.
thank you.
I didn't know
Are
that.
there cookies? I should have brought cookies.
How about next month? Actually, my cookie baker will be in Hong Kong that week, so I won't be able to get cookies from
No
her.
cookies.
Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah, will, yeah. I already tried to get something else from her that week.
Is that on
All
red?
right.
All right, next new business, G2, support for historic preservation tax credits.
Yes.
So you guys had asked me to drum up something in support of the two bills that were introduced earlier in 2019 that would reinstate the historic preservation tax credit. I have a little bit of new information. They are currently undergoing rewriting of a new draft that will have some improved amenities. It'll make the commercial credit a full 25% stackable without requiring the federal credit to be removed from that. Easier transfer of the commercial credit, I don't understand that one. Provides access to the credit to all National Register properties, whether or not they're in a historic district. And it lowers the expenditure threshold to qualify for the credit. That one's kind of huge. So that's what the next draft is going to look like. So this is actually well-timed, because this will be back on people's radar soon.
Yeah.
So what is the residential,
To read in here.
Credit.
There we go.
I don't know if that was in
where is it?
Let me see if I put it in the,
I don't
this is
remember.
a suggested resolution that came from the Michigan Historic Preservation Network and their lobbying group that's trying to pass it. Is it 25% for
Looks
residential?
like page 2, top of page 2.
Up to 25.
Yes, up to 25%. Yep.
Ann Arbor agenda?
Yeah, 2 of my houses in the district.
Yeah.
Good luck with that in your neighborhood.
Never gonna happen.
Yeah. So any questions about this? The city council passed their own resolution about a month ago
Oh, did they?
supporting this. Yeah,
Okay.
which is great. So I'll bundle them both
Yeah.
together if this is approved and pass them on so that they can be distributed to people who need them, need the support.
Yeah, no, thank you for putting this together. Jill.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing no objection, the resolution is approved. Is that, I'll have to sign
Yep.
this one last then.
Oh, that's pretty significant.
All right, related item is the next one, G3. It's the City Council 2021 Policy Agenda. This is something that's happened the last 2 years, but has not really been on my radar. And this year, they're really calling on city boards and commissions to give them input if you would like to. It's not required. So the policy agenda is the city's almost a wish list of things that they would like to happen in the next year. This is used extensively by lobbyists in Lansing, who will take our wish list and try to turn it into reality. This is not so much a city council wish list for things that they want to accomplish in the next year, although certainly they can use it as well. And we've been instructed to include just about anything we want to propose it. Not a guarantee that it'll be included on every year's list, but they would love to see things that the Historic District Commission is interested in supporting and having the state support, and things that will further our historic preservation program in the city. So an example might be that there would be something about monitoring and advocating for increased historic preservation tax credits.
Yes.
if you want something that's specific. Or it could be something broader, like increased funding and methods of financing for historic preservation projects.
Could it also include like just letting historic districts more aware of the tax credit availability? I just wonder how many
People
actually
know
know
that.
about it.
That could be rolled in too.
Right.
So we don't need to sit down and do this tonight. If you have things off the top of your head that you know would be great, by all means, throw them out right now, and I'll start a list. These do have to be back in December, so if we want things on this year's list, we can't wait until the annual retreat, which would be a great time to talk about this.
I guess, are there any, looking back at notes from previous retreats, if anything?
The
would apply?
retreat stuff
I
is
can't remember.
pretty
They're specific,
specific. Yeah, pretty local to us.
Yeah.
But, you know, these, if you're looking over these examples from 2020 and 2019, some of them are very broad and some of them are very specific. So you don't need to restrict yourselves to one or the other. If you would like a month to think about it, we can put it back on next month. If you'd like to email me suggestions, I can put together some sort of a short list.
I told you the one I think of now, just providing some sort of education-based thing to current HDC districts.
To like current property owners and
Yeah.
occupants.
Current property owners and occupants, that this tax credit's available.
Well,
Even the
they're not
slumlords-
available yet,
Oh, well, once they were, I guess.
yeah.
That even though people that own them, that don't live in the neighborhood, they could still make improvements and get 25% off up to.
Something they could support
Tax
themselves.
credit.
Yeah. It's a tax credit.
You want to mull it over?
Well, do you have any, Jill? I mean, I'm
No,
sort
I
of
haven't,
at a
I haven't,
loss for,
I
like,
haven't
what
sat
it
down
would
and
be.
thought about it.
Okay.
I really haven't. I just wanted to introduce it tonight so that we could start to think about it.
Once you do sit down and you have a few of them, that would be very helpful to seed
Okay.
my thinking. So,
Yeah,
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 I'm not
yeah.
really sure what you're asking for.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm asking for
Okay.
either, which is why I don't want you to feel like you have to be limited to anything.
Okay.
I don't know if this is applicable or how this would form into something, but one thing that I feel like should be put out there, it's more of like a PSA kind of thing to people who are looking to buy homes in historic districts or looking to move to Ann Arbor, and they say, oh, this is a great neighborhood, but they might not realize that it's a historic district,
And I need 4 bedrooms.
and their real estate agent might not bring it to their attention, or they might not even know what they're buying into, what responsibilities they will have moving into these neighborhoods. So I don't know what that,
So that might be some sort of a
Becomes,
reporting thing, or
At time of
that
purchase.
there's a way you
Yeah.
can't.
Wasn't there a historic precedence for that? I recall some sort of program in the past that
I don't know
Had
about
that.
a program. I'm not saying there wasn't, but I don't know of.
Tom,
It.
asked Tom.
Okay, okay.
because it seems like that would be helpful.
So just more information on,
When you're
more
purchasing. your
property
home.
information.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, we're,
As people have talked about putting it on a deed, making it a requirement or something like that.
yeah, like there's
Um,
other information just listed, like
Yeah.
bullet points. This
Or
is,
that MLS listing.
yeah. Something like that,
Yeah, an MLS would be great.
Yeah, bare minimum.
yeah,
Okay, I'll see what I can do with that.
okay, thank you.
I can think of something on the energy retrofits. There's going to be issues regarding hitting the climate action plan for the city and how to merge that with existing homes and how to really target existing homes for deep energy retrofits. Lots of people they know that they can look at their envelope, but the mechanical systems is what most homeowners get hung up on. That could tie really well with whatever program gets rolled out of the city, because I know the city's trying to look at deep energy retrofit programs. And it would be good to tie those together with historic standards.
Good.
It's my last day, so. Better be good.
It's not your last day.
Is that my last day? I thought this was my last one.
As chair.
You're still here.
You're still on the
I'm still here
commission.
for a while longer. That's what I was saying, like, when's my term expire?
Oh, your term as chair expires today.
Oh, when's my term?
Oh,
2020.
Like 20?
We're still down one.
what a
When's
terrible
And then-
misunderstanding, John.
I'm so sorry, John.
Confused me. I was like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
mean to
I
crush
got
your
all these
hopes.
Thursdays wide open now.
Yeah,
Nope.
you're going through May of 2020,
May of 2020. That's coming out.
Well, you can
and
get
then you'll start your next
reappointed.
term.
You're leaving.
Yeah, it's like,
Okay, I did not know.
Any update on?
Yeah,
well,
new
Yeah, we'll
could
get to
look it
that.
up there.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay, we're gonna get,
Okay, I think we're good with this for right now. I'll
the
type up something for the
conservative
next meeting.
commissioners.
All right. Lost my agenda. All right, do we need to say anything for that, or no?
No,
Procedurally? All right, G4, approval of revised meeting schedule. Oh, where's that?
one of it's in the packet, the next month's review committee was wrong. It was on a Monday, but that's Veterans Day, so now it's on a Tuesday. That's the only change.
Okay.
You should do a consent for that, or hearing no objection.
Hearing no objection, the meeting schedule has been approved as presented.
Thank you.
Great. All right, flipping over approval of minutes. We have September ones.
I had one item. Where is it? I don't believe Commissioner Rockland voted on 421 West Jefferson.
That's a good point.
right, I saw that
Yes,
also.
okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, I was looking out for you.
I was an
legal-
abstain.
Legal ramifications for Dave.
Well, no, he didn't vote on
I
it.
know.
Did
It'd
the
be
other
confusing.
one?
I would say, yeah, for the following one, State and William, I did not vote.
Yeah,
So
same.
I was
Yes,
just gonna
that
say,
is
was the
true.
other one the same way?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, right.
We were just all on board for everything else, so it just.
Good.
Very good.
All right, thank
right.
you.
So that has been an adjustment, and then we could say the meeting minutes have been approved for September 12th,
As corrected?
without objection, as corrected, as amended. Okay. Reports from commissioners, are there any? Reports? All right, there are none. Assignments, Tuesday, November 12th.
Can't be Evan.
I will not be at the meeting, so.
Okay.
I'm looking. Thanksgiving's the 28th, right?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
the end of the month.
All right, so I'm here the 12th. I can do the 12th.
Cannot do that one.
Okay. Jess and Evan cannot do it.
Ann or Bob, are you
Yeah,
interested in
I
that
can do it.
day?
No, I'm,
Okay,
I
Bob,
do M Club.
Bob can't do it. Oh, well,
Good.
this is
Good.
Tuesday.
This is
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Oh, I'll do it.
All right,
Oh.
Tuesday the 12th.
Okay,
Beautiful.
Because Veterans Day was Monday, we had to change it to Tuesday.
Yeah,
that's good.
that's right.
At noon.
All right,
Did
I've got one.
Right,
Yeah, that's a funny one.
Veterans Day.
Oh, you're doing it too? Okay, thank you.
Not funny, that's bad.
All right, thank you, Bob and John.
Okay. Reports from staff, September 2019. What's this one?
What is this replacement of rare French doors?
That would be rear French doors, not rare
I
French
was like,
doors.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Came from France.
that was on an edition.
Authentic.
Authentic French.
Yeah.
I was on an editing spree lately, so that means
That's good, that's good.
All right,
good
any
skill,
other,
Jess.
Oh, man.
anything
There's
else
a-
on the reports from staff?
There's a 544 Sixth Street is replacing an asphalt roof with a composite roof.
Okay, good to know.
It's Evan's house.
Oh,
To match the existing composite.
Oh,
All right, that's staff activities. I have two other small items to report. One is that City Council did the first step of the appointment process of a new commissioner. We should have a new commissioner next month, because she will be confirmed at, let's see, in the meeting in 2 weeks, assuming all goes well. I can't remember her name for the life of me. It was, someone just told me verbally what her name was. She has experience with the Ohio SHPO, and,
They have state.
yeah, yeah. And I think spent time in Ann Arbor, moved to Ohio, worked for the SHPO, and has been back in Ann Arbor for a few years, so, yeah, yep.
She'll probably know more than all.
Yeah.
That would be nice. I would like
And not an
that.
architect. Good.
Yeah, not an architect, yeah. The other thing I have to report is something else to put on your radar, probably at next month's meeting. We will be having, I'm anticipating, a presentation on small cell wireless. This is the next frontier in wireless. So wireless in
you thought you'd
historic
never say.
districts. Oh,
The next
man.
frontier.
It's, so you think, oh, small cell wireless.
Sounds awesome.
First one came
Is it
in.
misleading?
A little bit. First one came in, and it's a couple of things mounted at the top of a telephone pole. Great, no problem, no worries. I was going to bring it to you guys this month to ask for staff approval powers over this, but then I saw some of the other things that they could install, and it's like new poles where the base is bigger than a trash can, and then it goes up, and then there's another trash can on the top.
The city?
No, the city doesn't have control over it because it's cellular, and the state says you can just put them in the city right of way. So we're trying to come up with design guidelines that they will adhere to without fighting. This has always been the problem with cellular towers and things, that the state and the feds give them a lot of leeway as to what they can do, and then the city just has to sort of go along with it. And if everyone plays nicely together and we approve things quickly, then they might follow our design guidelines. And if you get into a battle, the city usually loses.
And then
So-
they're looking like fake trees.
In an effort to not make them look like fake trees, I'm going to be working with city engineers and a city attorney to try to come up with some design guidelines. And they would especially want them in the downtown, which is a historic district. So that'll be ongoing. And there might be a guy from the city here next month to talk about that. I'm at the very least going to have him try to put together some information so that we can have it in next month's packet. Some of this won't really concern the HDC because, like the Main Street Historic District, the boundaries are drawn to the parcels and do not include the street right-of-way. But the city can still say, that is essentially a historic district, so we'd like you to follow these guidelines anyway. It's not clear whether or not the Historic District Commission can make them do different things. I think we have a little more leverage, but we're going to start out trying to play nice and everybody gets along. And
If that's like a statewide concern, can SHPO help kind of in the conversation or no? Is that like-
Maybe, or we could put it in the policy agenda.
Yeah. Put in the policy.
Maybe other
I can ask
historic
them.
districts
or
have dealt
like-
with it too.
Yeah, I can ask
Like,
them if they.
Heads up, guys,
Yeah,
this is
yeah, absolutely,
in the pipeline.
yeah. So just want to let you know that that's coming,
Okay.
that's all.
Is that the last report? from
Yes,
Sarah?
it is.
All right,
What about
concerns of
this,
commission?
Center of the City Task Force?
We haven't gotten to
Oh,
that
yeah.
yet.
Oh, I
Or-
thought, that's a
Commu-
different, that's not a
communication.
staff report, that's
No.
something
That's
else.
communication.
Great.
Where did I
Yeah.
put?
Great.
All right, concerns of commission.
Continue on.
Concerns of commission? None? Any concerns? Okay, moving on to M, communications, various communications.
Okay, there's a communication from the Center of the City Task Force. They're looking to have a joint meeting with you guys and the Kemp House Board and the Center of the City appointees who are charged with looking at the library lot and making recommendations on what sort of a park or public space it could be. On the 14th is this meeting. I've already heard from Evan and Jess that you cannot attend on that night. Is there anyone who can attend and represent the Historic District Commission? They have a couple of other meeting dates coming up later in November, if nobody can, but it would be great to have somebody there, since it is bordered on two sides by historic districts.
I can't do it that
Two
evening,
sides. Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay,
I'm checking.
okay.
That's Columbus Day. Should be renamed,
And
but,
Is that why you can't go, because it's Sukkot?
I wish I
going
could
to a
tell you
Sucrose
yes.
party.
No, that isn't, no, I have a doctor's appointment.
It's really important to have someone there. I can be,
It is
Okay.
important.
I will ask
this is my calendar.
if it's not looking good on Monday night.
No, it's not, but all of that stuff is like, one's a bike ride.
Yeah,
I could always miss that if I had to.
yeah.
And the other's a parent-teacher thing, which I think would be earlier.
Why don't I let them know that I have one possible volunteer,
Okay.
and see what they say. They might want to just do the HDC piece someplace else, like at one of our meetings or something.
Yeah.
If, it's certainly not going to be a joint meeting if most of you can't go.
It'd be good to have one other person besides me.
Yeah, it would be,
I could check my scheduler,
Okay,
and I'll talk to you, Jill.
okay, that'd be great, thank you. I'm going to put maybe John and maybe Bob.
Just in the email, when you talk to us about it, I guess, remind us of the day and time. and
Okay.
location.
Okay,
Thank you,
all
John.
right, thank you.
Sure.
For going to that, that would be great.
No.
Do we get one other person? I don't want to speak for myself. Bob? Bob says he might go.
Oh, okay.
He's got to check with his scheduler. is what he
Okay,
said.
I get it.
His handler.
His handler. All right, that's communications.
Yep,
Anything
that's
else?
it. Nope.
All right, adjournment. There being no further business, and without objection, I adjourn the October 10th, 2019 Ann Arbor Historic District Commission meeting.
Thank you.